Okay.
All right, I'll repeat that. We're gonna call this meeting to order at 8:40 AM. First up, we have our bills and warrants to consider. Do you guys have any comments or questions?
I do, I have a couple,
Sure.
just questions, second page, 25,997, La Plata detention. That's a pretty hefty jail bills, we got somebody in jail regular right now.
Black court case.
I didn't see.
That'd be an
it, so
Anthony question,
No, we can find out.
Okay.
But yeah, when it's like this, it's been somebody.
somebody's in there.
You need to talk to the judge and say, give them community service instead of jail. That jail time.
I think I think this is our last court case that was here, and I think that
Oh,
that's
that's,
to be raised.
then he needs.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I think he tries very hard not to put people in the trap.
No, it's.
My second one is
I've seen them.
26003.
I had that one.
Angeles
too.
Mountain Construction. That's a hefty
Why are we
yard
paying
work.
$5,000
Bill.
for mowing the lawn?
I think it's must be landscaping or
Did they?
something. Willie might know what that is.
Sprinklers up or something, like putting sprinklers in, or? Cause that's a huge.
That's a hefty bill.
It's gotta be related to something else other than just
Yeah,
normal.
I think it's, was the end of snow shoveling and then yard work and stuff. We had some extra money because we didn't have.
Or you think we
We didn't use all of it for snow shoveling, so they were doing yard work.
might have been yard work for
Seniors.
seniors or something, that would make more sense.
That would make more sense.
Oh, okay.
And if that's spread out between, 5 to 10
Yeah.
properties.
Right.
That
Not
makes
just,
a lot more
And if
sense.
it's money we didn't use, we might as well use it, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
Any other ones?
all I got.
Just a comment on the first page, Silverton Electric, that's kind of our final bill and all that, Willie, as far as that, putting the electrical stuff in.
I don't think it's the final.
Okay,
I'm sure it's not the final because we still got a charge the system. Actually connect to San Miguel. Yeah, but everything is pretty much wired up in the hospital, so.
be kind of nice to know, just do a comparison of our electric bills, say, last year, 2 years ago, then our electric bills. Going into this, especially next winter, just see, and compare it to what we would have paid for, coal or
Yeah.
propane or anything like that, and just see, was it worth it?
Well, we know it's gonna.
It's gonna. be
I don't even want to
expensive.
comment on that.
We already knew it was gonna be
Yeah.
expensive, so, coal is definitely a lot cheaper.
But if I don't have Becky calling me every other day because the permit's
Oh.
not working. It's gonna,
It's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, no, and
No,
we'll have a good working order by this winter, so it's good.
When we looked at the other options, this is the one that actually made sense, and it's gonna cost us, but I don't think it'll be horrible. We hope.
Yeah. And then down on 25972, is that just a major repair to Bruce's sheriff's motorcycle with a dirt? He has a regular street bike and also a dirt bike, doesn't he? Doesn't he have a dirt bike?
That's what I'm wondering. That was one of my questions here for $3,000. That's a total engine rebuild on most motorcycles. So,
Yeah, that's a lot invested into a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I'd just be curious.
I know we got a good deal on them, but if these are the repair bills, then they're not such good deals.
I mean, I really like the idea of, a police officer being on a motorcycle, either in town or especially on county roads.
Yeah,
You can just, as you know, you can cover a lot more ground,
yeah,
and you
You can actually catch people.
can actually chase somebody down, yeah.
yeah.
Are these is that the BMW you drive?
The BMW is the street bike, and then the KTM is the other one. So I would assume at a motorsports kind of place like this, it's probably not the BMW, but Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't
That's,
know.
that's a pretty big repair to
Yeah, it
do,
is.
when, like, if you're gonna put that much into it, you might as well buy another one.
Pretty much. That's what I was thinking.
You know, I have one more just to look at, 25,960 Motorola Solutions for sure. It's obviously the radio guy. Be nice to coordinate that, that's a pretty good bill. They gotta have the communications for sure, but remember, we've been talking about road and bridge.
That was my other one.
Right, why don't we-
Question if
Why don't we, when we know they're coming up, let's catch them with one visit and
yeah,
get everything done.
yeah.
There actually was quite a bit of work where replace brake master cylinder, change batteries, replace several gasket rings, new tires, light combo switch.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one that Pete had mentioned too, that was the other one that I had too, is this Motorola Solutions bill for the sheriff's office. Just. Pete, your comment was spot on, just that our road and bridge guys are also down radios, and if you know, these guys are gonna be up here doing work with the sheriff's office, it makes sense to catch them. And all the agencies to kind of work
Right.
together on having them here for one visit or.
Yeah,
Right,
doing
you
one
know,
purchase.
their trip visit, their mob costs money.
Right, no, and
Yeah.
they, yeah.
Probably catch them
Yeah.
all at the same time as far as sheriff, road and bridge, OEM and ambulance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fire, yeah, all of them
Yeah.
at once, so just, yeah, I feel like maybe,
Cause all the radios.
I don't know how to best do that, but I guess maybe our next, roundtable with the emergency services departments, or send them a memo or something that just says, hey, you guys are doing radio work, or some of this, let's coordinate together to make sure
Be a little more cost efficient.
we're being the,
Right.
the best we can be, and you buy more stuff, sometimes you get better deals on.
No, you do.
Things.
Yeah.
You do. A lot of
Well, I
time.
mean, and you
Might
know,
be a
to a certain
discount.
extent, it's just a matter of sending everybody an email or a text and saying,
Yeah.
we've got Motorola coming up, does anybody else have any issues?
And
or
you have
needs
some
some-
radios that need fixed or anything like that, so, or reprogrammed or
And,
anything like
I
that.
mean, I'm sure there's other things that, similar vendors that.
Yeah.
We probably need to
Yeah.
talk about.
Had one other, Bruce had mentioned to me the other day when I was talking to him that, our, CenturyLink bill had been being charged to San Miguel for the last several years. For the sheriff's department. And it was like, well, what are we getting charged for CenturyLink for the sheriff's bills that we see in our thing? And he was like, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So I don't know. So hopefully, he didn't sound like they were gonna want a reimbursement necessarily for us,
My
but
goodness,
but they weren't gonna continue to foot the bill.
little oversight though.
Yeah,
That's all I got, you guys.
yep.
Okay. All right,
Let's see, on the back page, 7649 power motor for parts, 15,000, any ideas?
Tracks,
Oh, that was for those tracks.
Yeah.
Yep,
and that's way cheaper than cat.
wow, okay.
and probably not gonna be our only big bill next. I'm sure we'll hit the Marmot wire chewing bill next month. Yeah, any other questions?
That's all I got.
In a motion to approve the bills and warrants for June 11th, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes. Is there any questions on the meeting minutes?
I just have a spelling thing, really, that should be. THER and stuff, THERA, that was the computer just filling in for it. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph.
Usually they catch, the computer catches those things for me, but.
Yeah, but it's there and there, and then we won't catch something like that. See it? Yep, okay. That's it.
All right. There's no other comments or questions. Looking for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for
I'll make-
Wednesday, 28th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, dokie, Becky. Thanks for being patient with us as we work these first couple things.
All good. I don't think the Mary feels very warm yet this morning.
And just for the record, since we have Becky here, we're meeting as the board of health for
Okay,
this session.
all right.
We have to make a motion to
No.
do that or anything like that, just a notation.
I just will designate that in the minutes.
Okay.
We had there was an issue that came up recently with a different county, and if you ever do take action, then I think we need to be careful to
Yeah.
go in and
Convene
know
as a board of health.
yeah, I think updates are fine, but it's an interesting one. I'll talk to you about it sometime.
No, if you know, if there's, I mean, if we're doing any action, well, I mean, we usually do.
Yeah, that's
But,
what I'll talk to you about
I'm
it.
just, you know, I mean, doing this just so we have a record that as the board of health for.
I think it's perfectly fine.
I just want to say happy birthday publicly to Scott
That
today.
was yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday?
happy birthday, Scott.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
It's 67, you know that's.
Not 67 yet.
But you will be.
Oh. Yeah. Yes, I will,
Thought I'd be
but we're all the same. Don't look at me. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Well, the alternative isn't good if you don't make it to 67, so I hope you do.
I'm just always grateful to make it to another birthday.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's just my way I look at it. Yeah, I made it another.
Good positive view.
We're all hanging on by a thread. We have no idea every day how many times I bet we avert not being here anymore, so.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for having me. I was trying to remember when I came last.
It's been a while.
January, maybe? I don't
I
remember.
was gonna go back and look at it.
Yeah. Me too.
But
So,
I think January was the last one. I
Yeah,
mean, you were here. for
That's a
I
good
mean,
thing. It means there's some
Yeah.
stuff that's pressing, maybe.
yeah.
Touch
I
base
think so.
to February,
Yeah,
you were here for that.
cool.
Okay.
Well, so if you ever have any questions of the in-between that I might not have updated you on, please just contact me directly or let me know. So I just have 4 main bullet points. We started doing a certified food manager proctoring for testing. So essentially, in March, they started requiring that there's a certified food manager on staff at all times food is being prepared. So it used to be,
That was a rule like 2 years ago, but they just started saying that it had to be enforced. Yeah.
that's what I thought. but
Actually,
you
actually
did-
came further than that ago. It was like,
Yeah.
I remember 2021, I think I had to take that course because they were like,
I thought so too,
Yeah.
but maybe something changed in March where they were like, double down.
yeah,
So CDPHE, who does our consumer protections, which is our food inspections. They come every year and they do like in July or whatever and inspect. But we also bring them up for a food safety class essentially. And so this year they came with a focus on getting people certified as a food manager. And essentially people will go out of town to do this because it has to be a proctored test. And they'll go out of town.
What is that?
It means I have to be certified and I have to watch you and make sure it's done with fidelity. Like you can't just take a test online at home. It's you have to show me your ID, I watched you, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's good for 5 years. And so that test through us, if you don't do an online course, is only like $28. And that doesn't even get paid to us, it gets paid to the state to take the test. So our public health, the state wanted to get all these public health, the ability to do this for people since they're requiring it now. So they came up in May and trained essentially me to do this. I took a test to do it. And then we held like, I want to say it was probably around 35 people in the food industry over at Kendall, and we went through like a 2-hour basic, when I say we, it was they. And they went through like just a study session, and then maybe a little less than half, or about 18 people ended up doing the test. in person there. And then since then, I've been offering the test on Wednesday mornings or a different time if it works better for people. And we can do it in Spanish and English. And they can come back and retake the test as many times as they want. If you go out of town, that $200 to $300 adds up. So we've estimated we saved our county right now, and it hasn't been all that many people. There still needs more to take it, but probably at least a little bit below $1,500 for our restaurant owners, just to take it from us to, and then to waive the fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a 2 hour, yeah, it's a 2 hour test, and they can do it year round. So that's kind of makes me feel a little bit more like a real health department that I can offer that. It's kind of exciting. And then,
That's a good service too. When I had to take that test, I had to go to Durango 3 days in a row for that. And it was all day.
oh, and you did the
days.
training.
Oh, and I went, yeah, to do the training and the test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you can do it online. It's about an 8 to 10 hour online course. And the test and online costs, I think, $86. And it's in English and in Spanish.
That's great that they've
Yeah.
shortened that, cause yeah, I think it was like the course requirement was over 20 hours or something.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's really kind
Well,
of serious.
Look at how valuable your time is, you know,
Yeah.
$100 an
Yeah.
hour or something like that, you just
Mhm.
spend. You know,
Yeah, it's just
a lot of
expensive.
money just for as a restaurant owner running down, plus you weren't in your business, so you probably lost money because you weren't in your business, so.
There were a lot of restaurants that had 3 or 4 people there in Durango
Oh,
too, so that's a big hit to your staff. You
no, it is,
You gotta-
and you gotta pay that staff
do
too.
that. Yep, you gotta pay them for being there, pay for the test, it's a lot.
You're talking thousands, so if they
Yeah.
can do it up here, it's a big savings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and essentially it's ooh, no, lost that thought. Never mind. So good thing. All right, community health is my second bullet out of 4 is our community health assessment, that we did a couple years ago. The priorities were access to care, behavioral health, and substance use. So access to care, it's just been a really great work in progress with Dr. Brown and Dr. Naughton,
Yeah.
Yvonne and Dave. They've been wonderful. They carry prescriptions. We do a lot of, I'll reply to someone's text and say, call this number for their business, da 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 da. And so it's working really well. He typically sees, I think, an average of 14 people on Wednesdays, maybe 2 to 3 Mondays, sometimes more in the middle of the week, Friday nights, 2 to 3, and then maybe 4 to 6 on Saturdays. And then he has his job down in Durango. So, and then Dr. Naughton, Yvonne, is just seeing people on an as needed basis. And I just referred 3 people to them in the last week. And it's just so lovely, yeah. So it's really great. Silverton Clinic is Kathy Langmeyer still, and she's awesome. And they are essentially there on Fridays in case anybody walks in. They don't see really very many people, maybe 2 to 3. And they're able to do home visits because sometimes home visits aren't able to be billable and insurance can't cover it and people can't pay out of pocket. And so we're, at least according to Kathy, I haven't talked to the board, but she's like, give us any and all home visits or things that might not be billable or free. And so they're just really seeing minimal people. So, yeah.
What's Kathy's last name?
Langmuir, Langmuir.
She's awesome.
Say that again.
She's
Spell that again.
such a team player. Langmuir.
Langmuir.
Yeah.
Langmuir, looks like.
Yeah.
a German name.
And then on Tuesdays, there's typically in the morning for about 2 hours, lab draws. And so Ash will come in to do lab draws for 2 hours. So you bring your own prescription. You have to have a doctor's order. I mean, not prescription, but a doctor's order for that. And you can get it through either Kathy or Dave or Yvonne or another provider. So I think I covered the extent. Innovation is still saying they will come up on, the last Tuesday of the month or telehealth appointments. But they really wanted to help, Dave and Yvonne grow and build their practice so it's sustainable for them to stay here. I think funding is still definitely an issue for him. Yeah, I think
He
also,
needs an assistant that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, they're doing a lot and seeing a lot of people and, I don't know the model of sustainability, but it's not sustainable at this moment, which they understand and they're just continuing to work to build clientele. So, and then behavioral health. We still have Bruce Herring as our full-time counselor. He just reported he saw 60 patients, 60 client visits, not patients, but client
Personally?
visits.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
some months he sees over 80.
Wow.
And then he said 2 crisis calls this last month in May. And, and it's kind of word of mouth, like people will either get their friend to call him or they'll call him and he's available in the evenings and on the weekends and that kind of thing. So he's just a really great
It's
asset.
Wonderful having, I've been able to,
Mhm.
when I've come across a couple situations where somebody needed
Mhm.
immediate help, it's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
I'm just calling Bruce. and just
Yeah.
saying, can you call this
Yeah.
person now?
Yeah.
He doesn't, it's hard when it's,
Mhm.
10 at night, but it's still worth it.
And he probably will answer
And he does,
at
yeah.
the end of night. Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
nice having him here.
Yeah, he sat with us until almost midnight one time and it was above and beyond. So we are paying 3 other counselors. I think we have the most behavioral health specialists per capita in Silverton right now. But
How many,
It's
what's
easy
the
to do.
patient
We probably-
ratio?
We probably win for number of pot shops and behavioral health.
Yeah, there you go.
right? What's the, well, so
He has 60, but how
Yeah.
about Rob and the other ones?
Rob, Lee, Copenhagen, and they all kind of have their specialties, and so, and then Megan Brosh, they all only see about less than 10 visits a month. So and they get paid per diem kind of thing, like we pay them per session. So, not like Bruce where he's salaried. And, essentially Bruce's funding comes out of a CDC infrastructure grant. And it is going to be good. I think we have 120,000 in there left out of, oh gosh, close to 300,000 or 250,000. Anyways, he's good, I believe, through 2027 or half of 2027. Then we'll have to figure it out. So, and those other providers actually, they may see other people on their own, but so they'll try to bill insurance. And then if they can't and someone needs to utilize the free, then that's when we pay for it. So they just invoice us every month. And that we had budgeted about $20,000 and we're not anywhere close to spending that for the year. So. What there, Pete? Do you have questions?
It just seems like Bruce has got a whole lot more
Mhm.
hours and
Yeah,
compared to the others.
yeah.
A lot
Well,
of patients.
he's very well known.
Yeah,
He's available all the time. The others have, I think, other jobs. We
Right.
don't necessarily promote them like we do Bruce, and then Bruce has been here for 35 years. Like he knows people.
I was gonna say, just
Well,
was
I
actually really
understand that,
surprised this
but-
weekend. He got up and spoke at Ernie's memorial service
Yeah.
about some work that he had done with Ernie's son Kevin when Kevin was in high school. So
It's been around a long time.
It's been around a long time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we had a staff meeting yesterday and Bruce and I are gonna meet with the other counselors, therapists, and just talk about maybe just a little more work division and yeah. So,
You cover it.
It's a real asset to the community.
well, I appreciate if there's ever any observation that I'm not catching, you let me know.
Oh, nice.
The other addition, and then substance use. So we continue to hear a lot about alcohol, more so than opioids in Silverton, potentially being an issue. And so through the SWORD grant, and stop me if I've told you guys this, but through the SWORD grant, we received $41,300 last year, and we preserved 30,000 of it for paying for treatment, like rehab for people. Nobody's really come forward because the opioid funding is a settlement and it's entirely its own little pot of money that we have been told we will be getting at least for 16 years. Like it's just a ginormous settlement fund. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what we've been told, so we can apply for it every, pretty much early fall. We've really not spent any of that. So we ended up hiring a lady named Mariah Reeves, and she has Apricity Pathways. It's her own business. She's a certified peer recovery coach, and we hired her for about 20 hours a week to spend about $9,500 of the grant to just promote these resources. And she's been doing an incredible job. She's done more in 1 month than we, I think, have been able to do in like 9 months. Just because she has the passion, she has the ability. And so she really hit the ground running. And essentially, 3 or 4 people have contacted her through kind of an anonymous form, and it's not anonymous afterwards. And they counsel with her about whether or not they want to seek any rehab or what do they need for treatment, because that's where the funding needs to go to, is a lot of treatment focused. Other counties, this is from Durango, and so other counties are spending money, I believe, on, there's a big facility that they're trying to build. There's all this other work that other counties are doing, but we chose to try and just get treatment to people who needed it.
That makes a lot more sense.
Mhm.
We
So,
don't,
yeah.
we don't need a facility. We need-
No, and we
need-
can't, we don't have the capacity
Yeah.
for a facility. And what I'm hearing is that a lot of people are transported up to Denver, even with access for treatment or resources. I don't know the specifics of it. And then say they do get treatment up there, we just don't have the capacity in our region to eat, especially like pediatric patients and other things. It's just we don't regionally have the skill set. And so I think the sword funding is regionally is, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're on the council too, is really going towards local efforts to get more resources here. So somebody doesn't get, sent up to Denver and then they're like, how do I get back? And so we offered to pay stipends, but there's voucher systems that other counties are using. So we are not reinventing the wheel. And Mariah is here to look into all that. She's also counseling for peer recovery coaching. She's promoting it like crazy. We've never even gotten one call, let alone 4, for people to kind of, they're sober curious or they're whatever. And it can be all other drugs or alcohol too. It doesn't have to be opioids.
So
So,
that sword settlement can be used for other things other than somebody addicted to opioids.
yeah, I mean, not that we hope someone has an opioid addiction, but we kind of hope that if someone does, they come and we have that ability to help them.
Can you
Mhm.
alcohol or whatever?
Mhm. Because
Has to
lots of times it's so
set up in a
occurring.
way that it can be used for opioid addiction, but if
Mhm.
other, if it treats other addictive behaviors, then that's.
Mhm.
So you can kind of get around that by hiring somebody
Mhm.
to deal with this.
Well,
But if somebody else walks in, she can also help them then.
yeah, we're definitely not trying to get around anything. We just are finding the people that come and need help a lot of times feel they have a bigger problem with alcohol. And we know substances a lot of times are co-occurring, and maybe someone doesn't even want to say, but they'll say they have a problem drinking, but they might have other things going on that they don't want to actually say they have. And then, just it's just the snowball effect too. Someone, something might stop working for them, so they have to go deeper into more stuff, and it could turn into they get a pill, a lot of times people take
I think that was some of the
anything.
justification behind that. Was
Yeah.
that if if you're prone to addiction,
Mhm.
take care of whatever that addiction is, because
Mhm.
it may eventually lead to something else, so.
Yeah, if you're gonna self-medicate,
Yeah.
a lot of time, if somebody offers you something, you're just gonna go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
Like it doesn't,
Huh.
yeah. Anyways, so that is what you're gonna see for the bills for Apricity Pathways, is that we are paying her. When I talked to the sword people about the funding recently, they really wanted us to spend the funding by December 31st, that $40,000. So we went ahead and let Mariah know. We said, if you feel like you could do more work, do it. And so we will be seeing maybe more than 30 hours a week, 30 to 40 hours a week. She got a contract with like a Groovy, a non-alcoholic beer, to offer samplings for people to be able to taste non-alcoholic beer. She's going to do how to break a habit forming workshops, she's going to start those in July and maybe do like 4 of them. And that is like not focused on drugs or alcohol, but it's like a gentle, softer way to be like, okay, do you want to quit smoking, or do you want to quit doing whatever habit you want to break, So, and then if she gets enough, she'll probably do a peer recovery support group, because a lot of times people don't want to go to AA, which we have a group in town, but they want to go to something different. And peer recovery support groups are, I think they're called SMART something, and they're just not, they're 12 steps of AA. They're a different program that's evidence-based and So, and I'm trying to remember what else she's doing. And she's also trying to reach out and make better relationships with Access, which frankly isn't going very well, but what's new? So just did an email exchange with them, and they said they will not provide any direct services in San Juan County.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think they're getting funding cut. I don't know. I don't argue anymore. So if you have a suggestion about someone we can talk to at the state level to find out how we can get behavioral health funding to actually serve our county directly, that would be fantastic. So I've been trying for 10 years.
So we paying for it though,
Yes,
but we're not getting the service.
yes.
Aren't we paying Crisis $500 a year or something?
Yeah.
And for their ADU?
Access is getting more state money that covers and services our area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, in my last conversation I had with John Whitney, that he said he's been on Access about, is that they're being funded by federal and state
Mhm.
mandates to service our area, but not providing any services.
Yeah, I mean, there must not be any thing in writing that says they actually have to provide services in our county. Like our county can go to them. And I think they do. I mean, if you want to go and get substance use treatment for them, it's free. If you don't, I can't remember what the stipulations are, and anybody can go and get care in their facilities.
Yeah,
And we still have access to the crisis mobile team. I don't know, I heard something different from our sheriff's department, that we try to handle it on our own. But we pay to promote for them.
I would imagine they're in a challenging position right now.
Absolutely.
federal concept.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're compensating, and we're doing well. We're fine. We're using our funding. We're doing it. And I think they're doing the best they can. It's just, I think out of the 8 to 10 of us in town who meet as like a healthcare team, we're not seeking services in town from them anymore. We're just not trying, because it's a dead end. So I even asked if they would give us the funding that they think they might receive to serve our county, or a little bit of it, to hire a peer navigator again, because they advertised for it here a year ago or 2, and they didn't get any bites. I mean, they tried, and nobody wanted to. I think it was for a part-time peer navigator. And then when I asked them was it November, December, if they would, I just recently asked them again if they could put up the money to kind of fund like a Mariah's position. And they said they do not have it. So they are not able to do it this time.
It's gonna get worse.
Mhm. Yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know, it's not something that I'm trying to rock the boat about, but I think I have the email that just says, when I asked, I said, can you tell me what services you'll provide in San Juan County? Because they usually have a little bit of a list, like telehealth or whatever, and they didn't even provide that this time, or some training, and it didn't even come through. So I think we'll just continue to try to offer those services ourselves, so. And it might go better that we do that, so anyways, and then. The two last things are measles. You all know, it's just an ongoing, like it is unprecedented amounts of measles across the country. It's over 1,000 cases, almost up to 1,100. And if you're vaccinated, you should be in pretty good shape. And we have Dale Garland with Hard Rock 100 is awesome. And he reached out to just get some information for his international travelers who are coming. Because there was such a international super spreader event for the Hard Rock like several years ago. And so he's just really been supportive of getting out information to people like, hey, if you don't know your status, if they cannot provide their vaccine record or another proof of immunity, essentially they could be stuck quarantining here for 21 days if there's an exposure. And right now there's 14 cases in Colorado total. 8 just came in the last like week and a half from Turkish Airlines, and exposure at DIA. So the one case in Archuleta County was the closest we got, at a ski area a few months ago. And so I'm not trying
That was
to,
just that one case.
yeah, I'm not trying to sound the alarm, but
It's there.
it's around, and just know your vaccination status. And if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. So, and if you were born before 1957, you should be immune already and exposed. And I mean, there's a couple of little rules, a couple little nuances there. But we are always waiting and trying to be ready if that happens. We will not test here. At first, we thought we would. I ordered the supplies, but it is just over the top, kind of too much. And so, but we do have resources to refer someone to the hospitals in Durango or Montrose to do that. So,
I got a booster from them.
yes,
Yeah,
you did.
if you're born 1958, there's a weak spot where the vaccine that you're given isn't as potent as the ones they have now. So it's like, I'm gonna get a measles vaccine then.
Mhm.
Isn't it crazy they know that?
Yeah,
It is
I mean,
crazy.
that they can go all the way back and know that.
yeah.
So cool.
That's pretty well.
So cool. And then the last thing I was just gonna say, which you guys started to talk about, was just curious about the timeline of the building. Getting the electric finished, because the only reason I ask is downstairs is like a bomb's gone off. It's essentially poor Lauren. It's like, I know he's super busy and all that, and just curious when we might have downstairs access for a conference room again. We might actually use it now. So it's just a lot of parts everywhere, not definitely not finished yet, but we still have the electric heaters and the heaters in the hallway. And so like on Monday, it was so cold, but the heaters, we'll get them
So
going.
They're not finished yet. I thought,
Not
some
at all.
reason I thought
Mm-mm.
they were done, but
No,
I
no,
don't know
no.
why I had that in my head.
I shouldn't say not at all. There's a rumor that they have to put in San Miguel has to come in and put a power
Well,
pole
that-
and a
that-
line.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we actually, San Miguel has to drop a line
yeah.
to hook up
Uh-huh.
The service on the
all-
outside
all-
there.
Everything, all
Mhm.
the panels and everything are all wired and,
Mhm.
So a lot of the work in the hospital is done.
yeah.
Okay,
We were trying to get San Miguel to do that last October.
Yeah. Well, we paid the check back, and then we got into winter and, I don't know, but yeah.
it would be worth,
And, well,
contacting
I
them, I
think
guess.
the problem is right now is I think Denny has to be on site when they do it. And Denny is out of commission for a little bit,
That's right.
Oh, yes,
uh,
he is out of commission.
he's out of commission.
Can we have another electrician be there just
Uh,
for that?
possibly,
Isolated incident?
I'll talk to Lauren and see what San Miguel's schedule is, if that's something we need to do.
And if we,
But Danny's the one that's pulled the permits and everything at the state,
Right,
so
right.
the state is,
How long is he out for, do you know?
don't know. I don't think it's gonna be very long, but he just had some major surgery.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I talked to Lauren the other day about it, he said everything's pretty much ready to go over there.
you don't mind, I drink coffee with Jeff. Every other morning,
Sure.
Yeah.
I could sure ask him,
Yeah.
hey, can we
And
can we do something else? Just drop that.
Jerry's a pretty easy guy to work with too, and he'd be the other probably contact there, being the,
Yeah.
engineer for San Miguel, make sure.
Well,
He's always been super responsive.
we could just say, look, it's our clinic, it's our hospital, it's our doctor's offices, we need to get this finished.
Right,
And I think we're doing fine right now, but
We're coming in the summer, but.
Mhm.
but-
like you said,
Let's
it
get-
jumps up on you.
Let's get her done.
The beautiful season goes far too quick,
Yep.
so, yeah.
Sounding like Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, and we'll use that conference room downstairs more now that the doctors have, I gave them our waiting room and we'll use that conference room downstairs. I think a lot more for our meetings and our proctoring classes, maybe. I don't know. No panic at all.
Well,
Just saying.
well, here's a question, if is the work done in the building? With us just waiting on San Miguel, because if the work's done in the building, can we get all that stuff out of the conference room?
well, I think we need to energize the lines and then they go back and finish everything up.
I got you. We
They're all
gotta tie it,
wired, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's definitely some of those
The
that are,
covers on for all of them.
well, some of them are also moved into the hallway, I think. No,
Oh.
one was upstairs and they moved it into a storage room or something, so are they supposed to take those out or are they leaving
No, I
those?
think they were just gonna leave them in place, but.
Okay,
But if
yeah.
they're moved, there's no
Mhm.
reason to not take them out.
Yeah, I don't know, the historical part of the building. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
No,
Thank you so
No,
much.
I actually had one or two.
Oh.
When we were talking about Dr. Dave and Yvonne, any things that we should be working on as far as trying to write grants or get certifications, I know that we talked about having a regional health center
Yeah,
certification for them.
like an FQHC eventually in 5 years kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. And I think we do need to be working towards that, but I would want him to be included in that.
Yeah,
What was
and
that?
he did mention it.
A federally qualified health center.
Okay, I was trying to write that down.
Yeah.
Federal qualified. health.
Yeah, and we had talked about, I think 60,000 was what might actually help.
That was just for paying for an assistant.
Mhm.
That didn't have anything to do with federally qualified health center.
And how do you take
But-
that step to become a federal qualified health?
There's a lot that I don't know about this process, but there's, I think, the cycles to apply for it, and I think it becomes really comprehensive. But I think what he and I came in to talk about a little bit ago was that if we could help fund an assistance position or someone to help us apply, that is the position that it would be really nice to have, just a little bit of, someone like Dana, and then, there are people, it's way beyond
Do you,
me to know how to do
you
this.
have some people working on grants where some of that money can be funneled or that help can be funneled towards, working on that federal qualified
Yeah,
health?
we talked about shuffling public health because funding to maybe help with that, and I would, so right now, as you all can understand, it sounds like there's going to be some delays in us even knowing what our core public health service funding is July 1st. And as you can imagine, and we are very fortunate. We got COVID funding. They took ELC 2.2, which was a supplemental COVID funding pot. So we would have lost 30-something thousand, and then immunization funding, which for COVID, so about $50,000 we would have lost. And then, of course, that was overturned, so we got it back. And now they're saying the 2.3 ELC grant we applied for, which is around 30-something thousand. When they said, never mind, now they said, oh, wait, never mind, we'll give it to you right now. So everything about funding is super chaotic. And then our fiscal year starts July 1st. So once we have that, like the next year's budget, because
Right.
Amy and I would sit down and make that budget for July 1st through June 30th again. Then if we have some extra, because there are other public healths that pay for providers, like they will pay for a nurse practitioner because it's access to care. So we can use that funding for that. And then we had talked about in that meeting, if we have to, then emergency services could cover any cost public health needed, or just general costs for the building, because we don't know all those costs and we don't put that in our budget all the time.
Right.
Willie has the oversight and overview of that, the knowledge of that, and so that's, I think, what we were gonna talk about, to be creative around it.
Sure.
I think right now, is the Silverton Clinic receiving something like $35,000 a year to pay for their assistant in their clinic. We don't know what will happen after September with them. I think they're definitely waiting to see what happens with Dave and Yvonne, like they want to stick around just in case.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if they're getting that money for assistant, but the clinic, there's,
right, the
No.
majority of the people are being seen over
yeah,
there.
there's no point in having the
Yeah.
clinic, then,
Yeah,
can we use that money for that as?
I mean, I think we need to look at that next year,
Right,
probably, right?
right.
Like, leave it be
Or-
and then see
I
what.
mean,
Realistically, I could see, let's look at 2026 of funding for, because the other issue is it's really hard for Dave and Yvonne to maintain personnel and help and, you know, and so do we even have that person that could help?
Sure.
And do we even, so I think they right now are just maintaining, really setting up their clinic and going, and he is, you know, so he's got great oversight of plans and how to do all this, and so I don't really even want to speculate how to do this
Sure.
until he's.
so there's some way we can juggle to where, the person that was, the money was going for the clinic, but the clinic's not gonna exist anymore.
We don't know that.
But-
Yeah, we
But I mean, I'm
don't.
thinking ideas
could,
for like,
yeah.
But
remember Dana did that community assessment, could
Mhm.
that position be used to work on a federal qualified health center?
Yeah.
Becoming one of those. So
Right, right.
is that
It's a pretty low, like that position is only 10 hours
Oh,
a
okay.
week.
But,
so
But you're right, that's a
What-
great idea.
what, my understanding of what was requested when he came in and did his presentation
Mhm.
was he wanted like $56,000 or $58,000 for a staff person. Now, what he mentioned was that would be, you know, medical staff, but also could be the person that was working on the grants and
Mhm.
stuff. Now, I don't know that
Yeah,
that's kind of a unique, maybe a unique person, maybe that
Mhm.
person is out there, maybe they're not.
yeah.
Be both the person that comes in and, you know,
Mhm.
is your medical assistant, but then
Mhm.
also spends several hours a week.
We may
putting
not find
grants
that
together.
in one person here.
So,
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, that would be
Yeah,
great, because then it's a full-time position
yeah,
and your, you know, chances of keeping them.
Yeah.
Are better.
better chance, especially if it's
But-
full time.
yeah.
But, you know, if they're good at one or the other, you know, they may not be committed.
But if you become the way I kind of understood it, if you become a federal qualified health center, then that opens you up to a
Yes.
chance of more federal grants and things like that.
That is
right?
my understanding.
Okay,
My limited understanding is that that would actually open it up to then helping pay, because I don't know if, and I've heard this from others, I don't know if our community can sustain a doctor. You know, I just don't know if there's enough people in our community to be able to sustain a physician, and so an FQHC would help with those grants and help with that, is my understanding.
And quite honestly, maybe the best we can do is a subsidy to the doctor to, you know, whether it's paying for a position or a subsidy of, you know, 50,000 a year or whatever, and that's
Right,
what it takes to keep them in town, you know. I mean, back in the day, when we had a doctor that came up, from Durango, you know, came up from Durango for, once a week or twice a week or whatever it was. The county actually subsidized him for
Mhm.
doing that, and then we had a person move to town that wanted to be a doctor, so the county said, well, we don't need to subsidize a person coming from out of town.
Mm,
And, you know, and So we've had several attempts from local doctors trying to set up a practice, and
Mhm.
none of them, for various reasons, haven't ended up being successful.
Yeah, and I think we just don't know enough yet, and I think since they started in January, or was it December? I think then we can look at the data in a while and then just look at it, and I'm curious about the numbers that. For the EMS, like, is he preventing some more EMS calls in that?
I think he is.
I think he is too.
Something as simple
Mhm.
as stitches or somebody that's really
Mhm.
sick. They
Right,
can go to him instead of
Right.
going to the NTs.
and he can give them
Hey, you
steroids.
gotta go down to the
Mhm.
hospital, so.
Right, as well as preventative care and primary care,
Right.
you know, the more you can get of that, then the less hopefully you're taking the ambulance to the ER.
Yes.
So, yeah, and that, we're not set up to do that study right now, but I think,
But his patient growth has been exponential.
yeah.
I mean, it's, once people found out,
Mhm.
he's.
And people
yes.
don't do that if they don't like the provider. I feel like we've seen that enough. If they aren't that comfortable or they don't hear word of mouth, he would not have the growth he has, you know, of other people's success stories.
No,
So.
I'm just hearing good things from people who are saying that they used to,
Yeah.
totally
Mhm.
impressed with. everything.
And the fact that he has a pharmacy on hand is
Yeah.
absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So.
Lois,
Mhm.
Lois did a lot of work on what the requirements were for the federal
Mhm.
certified. And
Mhm.
her intent was that the Silverton Clinic would
Mhm.
pursue that. And but her board. The board of directors at that time and currently decided that that wasn't a feasible. Alternative for them. I don't know.
Which is
For
understandable.
various
It's huge, it's understandable, right? And I just want to say, thank you for reminding me, if you have a moment and you see Lois McKenzie, she has been helping Dr. Dave, and has not wanted to be paid, and she is just continuing to be
I think she's just loving being back.
in medicine, and she wants to help where she's needed, and it's needed. And so if you see her, maybe just give her a little thank you. She's sure got a heart for this community, so, and she's a great nurse.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just that kind of conversation that we just had, just leading into, we're going to be having talks with town about shared services. And it sounds like, we're potentially looking at things in 2026. Well, we need to start thinking about those budget items now, and into the fall.
Yeah.
And talking, about what our needs are for next year. So just think about it, and when you have an update to give us, then
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Do other communities, does the town, is this what other communities do, is where the town and the county combine and help with those medical services?
And there's all kinds of shared services that are
Okay.
shared between
I didn't
counties
know
and
there
towns
were.
that,
Yeah.
don't necessarily happen here, or,
Mhm.
happen in every community.
Mhm.
But yeah, health services for sure. I mean,
Mhm.
San Juan Basin Health is a perfect example of a, department that was shared between multiple different counties.
True that.
And had support of the municipalities from there too. And then that, obviously has changed in structure and
Yeah.
scope.
Mhm.
Has left a lot of reeling a little bit, but yeah, just
Yeah.
ideas to think about, for.
Yeah.
Because it will be a topic of conversation when we meet with the town to talk about that and a whole lot of other things.
Okay.
Too. So
Definitely
just,
think
yeah,
about it.
just
Thank you. Yeah.
food for thought,
Food for
I
thought.
mean, we need to be putting this stuff together now, not October when we're in the middle of budget.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All of a
for
sudden,
sure.
it's like, well,
Mhm.
what do we need to figure out what to do? Let's,
Mhm.
get started on the process so that we can plug in some numbers
Mhm.
on that time.
even just discussing the needs that we have, and that all these different places, it's not just,
Thinking that.
it's
Yeah.
not just the health department. I mean,
Mhm.
Silverton Family Learning Center's experiencing a pretty big crisis right now for funding, and
Yeah.
our social services funding. I'm sure that we're gonna hear some bad news, from our field here.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah, yeah.
Biggest
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, but yeah, and it's hard because of all the unknowns too, but you know, the more,
Mhm.
you know, the more and the longer we can kind of be prepared to have these discussions and understand needs and
Mhm.
things like that, the
Anticipatory.
yeah, the better we can kind of plan
Mhm.
to try and do our best to figure out what services we'll be able to provide and how successful we can be and how much, you know, collaboration
Mhm.
we can hope to have from, you know, from everybody in the community and from our
Yeah.
state and federal partners and everything. So,
Right. Well, thank you for reminding me to look up and look at the forest versus just the trees. So, because I think we did our last community health assessment, was it 2020 or 2021? I can't remember, but then wait a minute. Well, now I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder what new answers we would get out there of what is needed. You know, because if you look at 10 years ago, when I started, we were on $120,000 budget for my office. And then one of the silver linings of COVID was essentially, you know, it bumped up to 5, 6, 7, $800,000, and we were actually able to hire people and hire
Sure.
staff. So, so now it'd be nice, even though we have quite a few staff, to look back at the basic needs. So thank you for that.
yeah,
Yeah, and I just have to say, I really appreciate you guys. I don't know if you realize how much I just feel like this is a unique situation to where, you know, I did used to be scared of Ernie, I have to admit. I probably cried a time or two until I took a plane ride with him to Denver for the EPA stuff. And then after that, I was like, ah, you know, no problem. But I just have to say, I think this is, and Dennis can probably add to that since he works in other counties, but I cannot imagine a more supportive board and boards that I've had in the last 10 years here. I think I would not still be doing this job if I didn't have all of you. It's just amazing the heart you have for our community and the compassion and the wisdom and the experience. So thank you.
Fantastic board.
Thank you.
Fantastic admin, frankly, yeah.
yeah,
And I especially think of the
True.
the COVID years,
Yeah.
yeah,
those, public health was not supported by a lot of county, as, you know, there were a lot of
Probably the
counties that
majority.
their commissioners were not supporting
And a lot of those public health directors are not still here. I don't have a statistic of what aren't still here, but they're not
Did you
still
say it
here.
was 30% or more?
I kind of wonder 50% maybe
Yeah, that
of
was-
turnover.
That just,
Yeah,
that was sad.
yeah.
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 Anyways,
All right, thank you.
And the
Becky.
burnout. Yeah, thank you,
And the
Becky.
burn.
You've done a great job too, and we
Keep
really
up the good
appreciate
work.
it.
I'm just glad we're not scary.
You're a little scary.
Yeah.
Oh.
scary 10 years ago.
When he puts on the red suit, it all.
Yeah, yeah. I'll come to life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
I'm just glad there was enough of us old people to get off the insurance so that we could improve the insurance for the younger staff.
There
Because
you go.
that
There you
makes
go.
it more difficult for them to walk away from the job.
Looking directly at me.
No, just kind of
I'm like-
having that sort of thing.
Insurance for the family. So thank you. That was a great move.
Very beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Mark and Chrissy, come on up.
Good morning,
Morning.
and I second what Becky said. It's about, excuse me, supportive board and administrator, so we appreciate it. My goal is always to keep your trust and keep our good communication.
Doing great at it, so.
Let's hope it stays that way. So, first, just start with the financials from April, which are pretty normal, nothing of big note to look at. Expenses were Chrissy's pay and benefits, and then charges to La Plata County for our support. And so those amounts were pretty typical. And then the property taxes on the second page, they keep coming in very well. And so again, my favorite line on the second page, the profit and loss statement, is the bottom line, second from the right, which is where we were at so far for the year through April. And we were almost $3,700 positive with our revenues over our expenses. And that is because, you know, all the bulk of the property taxes come in the first part of the year. And so it'll kind of slow down as year goes along, but that's a good buffer to have right now. So, and third page of financials is just the state fiscal year to date. And those usual 3 lines we talk about, which are the child welfare 100%, the core 100%. We always spend down the 100% first, so that's why they're either mostly spent or overspent, and then that switches into the 80-20, which is 80% state, 20% county. So those will switch and we'll be fine. And then the LEAP money, we were overspent, which was no surprise since our whole allocation for the year was $530. And Chrissy definitely spends more time than that helping people. And so within the last month, we got approval from the state that they will pay that difference at the end of the
Good.
federal fiscal year. That one runs September through October. So they've confirmed that. So the financials are pretty normal. Any questions about the financials as of the end of April?
I'll make a motion to accept the financials transmittal number 4 in the amount of $11,654.60.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's see, a few updates. Do you want to give updates about EOC and AAA
I don't
and
have a lot.
CSPG? Which is good.
We'll start with the AAA. So we've been doing yard work for the community, seniors in the community. And we have about 130 hours left to complete by the end of June.
Wow.
And my contact says absolutely, like they could do 500 more hours. So, we'll spend that money. And then hopefully get more money for the next year.
Yeah, it's better than it was last month. I think last month we told you we had almost a 50% cut in our AAA funding for next year. They got more money or they regrouped or had a different conversation with the state. And so far our money for shoveling for next year is about the same as it was
Okay.
initially for this year. We ended up getting some extra money this year, which is helping with the yard work, but we're looking much better than we were a month ago.
Yes. So that's about all for the AAA. Nothing too exciting, but that's good. CSBG, so at one point they had frozen our funding. So we didn't know if I was gonna be able to use that for the Thanksgiving and Christmas food that I buy. But I think they have released that now, so it's all good to go. And then I am meeting with her name Kelsey. From Plata County to do kind of like an audit to go through how I do stuff and things for the CSBG program. So that is on the 27th, I think. That's all for CSBG. And then EOC is the energy assistance program other than LEAP. And so I still have about $400 left for this quarter. And then I get one more payment and it's about $800. So we've spent almost all of our funding already, which is really good. And we will get more funding for the next year, hopefully. I haven't heard what the amount will be yet, but we're hoping at least the same as we got this year, which was right around 10,000. Nothing too exciting.
Yeah,
which is good.
And one unusual thing Christy's seen is more new applications than usual for food assistance and medical assistance this time of year. Usually they spike in the fall and then drop off in the spring, and this year's just kind of a different dynamic.
Yeah, it is. It's odd. I've been here, 10 years, and so I kind of know how it's supposed to go. And this year it's been different. I've gotten many applications for food and medical assistance in May and in June, which is unheard of for my office. And there are a lot of new people in town, so I'm assuming that's why. But yeah, it's kind of nice. It's just busier than normal.
And she told me that a lot of them are not being approved. People don't realize how low your income has to be to qualify, but at least they're applying. At least they know there's resources out there.
But even if their income is too high for assistance, we still got food banks and different things like that. If they at least can steer them in that direction.
Right, and then, so like, basically, I have a spiel that I tell all the people. But I let them know, like, we do have a commodities distribution the last Tuesday of the month. There is a food bank that Patty runs through the church, normally just in the winter. There's the food bank at the library now, and they have, like a little pantry, and then they have a freezer and a refrigerator. So there's all of these options, and then in the summer, when the food truck comes, you know, so there's a lot of options for people if they don't qualify for food assistance. Medical assistance is different. The income limit is lower than food assistance, and a lot of people need medical assistance more than they need food assistance. So that part's kind of hard.
Anything else you can think of for updates?
I just have an apartment update. So we have the one apartment available. It's almost ready to go. It's being cleaned today. Lauren needs to fix a cabinet, and then we need paint touch-ups, and then I can rent it. It will be a 50% AMI apartment instead of a 60% AMI apartment. I just did income qualifications for everybody that needed income qualifications down there. And one couple was over income for the percentage they were at. So they just moved to a 60% apartment, which was really nice. And their rent only increased by like $50. So it wasn't too bad. So I have a 50% apartment available as soon as all those things are finished. I'm also gonna have another 60% one-bedroom apartment available the end of this month. And then possibly a 2-bedroom at 30%, available sometime between now and the end of summer. So,
Can you send me the statutory basis for the AMI percentages and all that? Willie and I were talking about that on a different matter. Is that based on HUD or?
it's Chapa does it.
It is based on.
Yeah.
Chapter. Okay, so you did get it right, alright. Lucky guess on that. And then if you don't mind, did you get a chance to get those leases put in place for all of the renewals?
So I'm waiting until I finish
Are you
the,
laughing?
the income qualification. Once I finish all of that, I'm gonna have a meeting with all the tenants, and they're all gonna come in and complete the new leases. Then,
Great, let me know if you have any questions on any of that stuff or need any help on the attachments.
yeah, I think
I know it's a lot.
it's a lot of paper,
Yeah,
but it's okay. But I plan to do that relatively soon, and have at least one person from each apartment here to go over a couple of rules and then, fill out new leases.
keep me posted, appreciate it.
I know it's a pain in the neck, but it does protect us,
Oh, the
A
new
lot.
requirements are.
Yeah.
Are on.
as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions before I dive into some
Nope.
financial news with no definite answers right now?
I wanted before you get
Yeah.
started, just to finish up on the anvil on the apartments. We basically get a chart that says for a 2-bedroom apartment, 40 or 50% income or whatever that income is, this is this is the maximum rent you can charge.
Right.
And so we get that every year, April, May,
Yeah.
somewhere, and so come July 1st, those increased rents take effect. So,
It's better than January 1st.
yeah, so, yeah, we go from July 1
Yeah,
to June 30th, so.
yeah,
Just 'cause that's the best time people are working, they have money,
yeah.
it's
They
easy,
can- they can-
yeah.
And we do price kind,
Mhm.
we don't go right up to the max.
Yeah.
On all these, we try to be reasonable to make sure we're covering our costs, and we've got some contingency in there, but we're not a for-profit corporation, so we don't need to get every dime we can.
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, some of those rents, for affordable are still.
Yeah, it's surprising that they say the number is affordable. Cause some of those, I couldn't afford it.
Hmm.
There's no way.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe affordable in a big city. or
yeah,
something like
and
that.
I don't really understand how they come up with the AMI. But it doesn't seem accurate for our little hamlet to me. But those are the numbers we have to go by, so.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, it is the AMI for San Juan County, it's not
Yeah.
statewide or
I gotcha.
regional or anything, so. You know, the numbers are specific to the county.
Yeah, we saw the housing, study where it talks about average rents and things like that. Average rent is like $2,000 a month for a
Yeah.
2-bedroom apartment, which is
Mhm.
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, Willie and I discussed, like, if we raise the rent to where, like, it could be market rate, some of those rent amounts will go up by $700-800. And I'm like, how do you raise the rent $700? Like,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, so. It's just ridiculous.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. My news, I could talk a lot or pretty quickly, really. So I was at the Colorado Counties Incorporated conference last week, and Human Services always has a track that goes along with it. And really our entire track, all of our sessions were about finances, whether it's federal concerns, state concerns, what might be coming. So this is really just information for you. And I'm going to start by talking about the big beautiful bill, because that is the most pressing matter. And in your packets, I'd also sent some example letters that other counties had sent. So I thought that'd be a good place to start in case you all want to send something. So with the one big beautiful bill, which is the budget bill that's going through federal Congress right now, it's passed the House, it's in the Senate. The very optimistic hope by federal legislators is that they'll have it through the Senate and back to the House by July 4th. Most people don't think that will happen. But it could, depending upon what decisions they do or don't make. Because once it passes the Senate, then it has to go back to the House to be approved again. And then once it gets approved by the House, then that'll be what goes forward as far as a budget or the resolution for next year. Essentially. So the biggest pieces right now that are of concern for social services are potential changes in Medicaid. So what's in the bill right now as it passed the House is that it would mandate work requirements for what are called able-bodied adults without dependent children. And so anyone who's on Medicaid, who's between the ages of 19 and 64, and their income is between 100% of the federal poverty level and 138% of the poverty level, which I meant to bring those numbers with me and I did not. Actually, a family of one, they could be on Medicaid if they earned up to $20,000 a year. So one person earning $20,000 a year could qualify for Medicaid. I know. So those people, which is about 377,000 statewide, would have to show that they were working or doing some kind of community activity or in training or education for at least 80 hours a month, every month, including the month before they applied. And then their eligibility for Medicaid would be redetermined every 6 months, which now is redetermined every year. And so it would double the workload on social services. Yeah, it is complicated. It would double the workload and it would double the difficulty for those people because it's turning in verifications of income, it's turning in expenses. Christy can speak more to what all people have to turn in. So it's well intended as far as not wanting to have people on Medicaid who don't really need it, people who are taking advantage of the system, but very few people on Medicaid are doing that. Most people really need it. They really have some medical stuff going on. There would be exceptions for, 90% of the people on Medicaid who have disabilities, who are elderly, who are children. There wouldn't be work requirements for them. But the work requirements will be hard to implement and really hard for people to report what their earnings are. It's going to be hard for our staff to track. Oh, they turned in their proof for this month, for that month. And automating it will be really expensive. We've talked some in the past about the Colorado Benefits Management System, CBMS, which is the computer system Christie has to use for all of the food assistance, Medicaid, everything. It's kind of a mess already, and having to do a lot of changes to it to adapt to this quickly will be very expensive. So Medicaid is concerning that way. Also, for states who provide coverage through their Medicaid system for undocumented or not legally present people, which Colorado does, then the state share of its costs would go from 10% to 20%. And so the amount that it costs the state to have Medicaid and to pay for Medicaid would double. And I don't have those figures with me, but I know I can get them if you want me to, or Healthcare Policy and Financing has a whole website that has a ton of information on it. And, the state being able to afford doubling the cost of Medicaid to the state would be expensive, and we don't know how that would break out to the counties as far as would that get passed down to the counties or not. Those are the biggest things. And in San Juan County, as of the end of last July, because those are the numbers that I have. Oops, that's the whole state. There's San Juan. There were 194 people, residents of San Juan County, who were on Medicaid. And so 92 of those people met those criteria as far as people who would have to do work requirements and have their eligibility redetermined every 6 months. And so, 92, which is, gosh, what, an eighth of the population, would have to be doing this to keep their Medicaid. And
We have that many people on Medicaid.
it's really typical for,
It's like
it's
30% of.
yeah, it was
population.
last year when they did this, it was 24.5%. Statewide, 23.5% of people in Colorado are on Medicaid. So San Juan's a little bit higher. Which, I mean, that's the point of Medicaid, is to provide people with health insurance.
But that's all income related, or below a certain amount, but that's kind of a sad comment on our society, is that 30% are in poverty in a country of this kind of wealth that we have. So it's just a comment, but that's sobering to me.
I'll go a little further with that comment.
Yeah.
It's I think that the greatest challenge of this generation is healthcare. And I think that, Medicaid and Medicare system, shifting the blame onto the people who are receiving the services when these are the people that really need these services is really sad, and in my opinion. And if you really want to go after somebody for the expenses in the system, there's no better place than to look at the insurance companies and I don't want to say the providers, because that insinuates the people on the ground doing the work, but the administrations and the healthcare facilities and the companies that are charging these. I think that there's far more fraud that's perpetuated to Medicare in terms of charging Medicare than it is in end users perpetuating fraud costing the federal government. And I think it's just absolutely ridiculous that we would try and come after the people who need these services versus the people who are absolutely just bamboozling the people of this country for the healthcare problems that we have.
Well, the other sad thing is present administration hasn't even talked about healthcare that I can see.
Yeah.
None. Just a lot of other smoke screens, but I don't see them talking about healthcare.
So
We had a conference that Pete and Willie and I attended last year, and I remember sitting down with our senators reps with Helen Kadich and John Whitney and asked, about healthcare, and they said, "Oh, healthcare is a 4-letter word in Washington. After Obamacare, nobody wants to touch it," and so we've just basically given our consent to the companies to just absolutely
Well, that's been such a battle cry, we're getting rid of Obamacare, this and that, it's like,
Sure.
okay, fine, but what's your solution, and what are you gonna come up with?
Yeah,
And they haven't, that's the sad thing.
it was the promise of our current governor to try and fix healthcare, and then when COVID came along, I think that was quickly shuffled under the rug. It was, on his flyers and his campaign promises from his first election that he was going to fix healthcare for Colorado, and I haven't seen anything in the first term, and then I wrote a letter to him and didn't get a response about the second term, during his second term, of what are you going to do? And that's, I think, going to be a very contested issue for me in the upcoming governor's election. I think Senator Bennett's planning on running for governor, and so is our state attorney general, Phil Weiser. And when I asked John Whitney, what's Bennett going to do for healthcare in the state of Colorado, I didn't get a very good answer. So
I don't think there's even if you're sincere, there aren't very good answers.
Yeah.
Right now, to this healthcare system that we have.
So yeah, I definitely think we should write a letter that expresses our disappointment at the federal government level for healthcare, and maybe we should go one further and say at the state level we've been left with a bunch of empty promises as well for looking for solutions. But I think if government regulation started auditing the billing practices of these and the insurance companies, I think that would be far greater use of resources for government resources than going after Medicaid and Medicare recipients for proving income statements twice a year.
So the other most concerning part for social services of the one big beautiful bill is regarding SNAP, the food assistance, supplemental nutrition.
Another program that's
they're wanting to put in really big cuts, and the biggest way they're making cuts is actually shifting costs to states. So right now states don't pay anything for the benefits that people receive. And so in Colorado, on average, Colorado citizens statewide receive $120 million per month in SNAP benefits. And so that's all federal money right now. There's no state cost for that. And so including this bill is that states would pay at least 5% of the costs of those benefits, up to 25%. And that's going to be based on some quality assurance issues, depending upon how a state's doing. And so at the 5%, Colorado would have to pay $6 million a month for those benefits, which, you multiply that out times a year. But that's at the very lowest end. If we fall into the 20% category, which is where Colorado falls right now, given the quality assurance piece they looks at, 20% of that every month is $20 million, and times that times 12. So that is not affordable for any state. So cost shifting that to states is just not affordable. And then the other piece of cost shifting that's is right now the administrative costs. So again, like Chrissy's time, my time that you spend related to SNAPs is 50% federal, 50% state. So that gets divided up right now with 50% federal, 30% state, 20% county. That's our 20% match. So the federal government wants to switch it to 75% state, 25% county. 25% federal. And so it'd be a 50% increase to the states and counties. So how that would get divided between the state and the county, we don't know. They also want to increase work requirements. SNAP already has work requirements for able-bodied adults between ages 19 and 54 with certain criteria. Those would be increased up to age 64. And if they have kids right now, they're exempt up to age 18, I think. And the new law would be only if you had kids up to 7, would you be exempt from having to do work. So as soon as your kid reached 7, you would need to start doing at least 80 hours of work or school or training every month. So it's just the biggest problem with SNAP is it's not going to be affordable for states and counties to be able to do that piece of it. So those are the big, beautiful bill pieces. So of the letters that I sent, I looked over them to think which one might be the best starting place. If you want to use one as a starting place, you're certainly welcome to write whatever you'd like. The Larimer counties I liked because it addresses both Medicaid and SNAP. And it's written more recently than a couple of letters. The other ones are mostly just on Medicaid or just on SNAP. So if you want a starting point, you might want to start looking at the Larimer County one, but I know that y'all are absolutely welcome. And if you need any data or stats from me, I can do that.
You think there's a benefit to writing a joint letter so that somebody's gonna review it and see both on it, or do you think there's more benefit to writing separate letters for the SNAP and Medicaid problems so that
I don't know.
maybe
the
reach
answer.
the correct ears and have most of, that for one or the other?
For me as a person, it's easier to, have read one thing and cover a lot of ground because there's so
Yeah.
much paper that goes across our desks.
Sure.
But I don't know, if people might appreciate a more focused one. So yeah, if you want more focused letters, the other examples definitely, there's the Boulder one is specific to Medicaid. And then, there's one from NACO, which it's pretty high level. It does a lot of talking nationwide. And then the Naxa one seemed a little bit more readable, but I'm sure there's other examples out there. I'm sure other counties that you guys all work with have done that. So right now, what I have heard is that Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett are very much supporters of social services. And so this is really on their radar, but once it goes through the Senate, it'll go back to the House. And so definitely speaking to Representative Hurd in the House and other people who may have voted for the big beautiful bill in the first place, it'll go back to them. And so that may be where the focus wants to be on. I mean, obviously speaking to everybody, but we don't know what'll come out of the Senate, but whatever comes out of the Senate, then we'll go back to the House. So that's the big beautiful
The
bill.
Senate's gonna be making changes to that bill.
Yeah,
They're arguing that over it, so.
yeah. Other things just for you to be aware of, which I've talked some about, is Colorado itself is having financial challenges with 3 intersecting pieces of social services funding. And those are Colorado Works, which is the TANF program, child welfare, and childcare. And so we spent a lot of time on Monday at the conference talking about all of those. Basically, all of them are going to be overspent. There's no good solution to that. And so there's a joint, it's called the Joint Alignment Committee, which is commissioners, state people, county people who are meeting to start really looking at this and figuring out what kind of changes need to happen to be sustainable. And a big piece of it, which we've talked about before, is legislation that gets passed that says, the legislators think, oh, it's a great idea let's use some Colorado Works reserves to pay for whatever it might be. Gradually, right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so some of that happened again this year. Some of the things that will impact, especially child welfare this year, is legislation passed so that the really high dollar placements for kids who are really difficult with behavioral issues, those are going to be harder to get kids in those high level expensive placements and get paid for through Medicaid. And so counties might have to start paying more of that. And so that's going to go through child welfare funds much more quickly. And then also a bill passed, which is really well intended. Again, it's so that kids who are in out of home care whose parent has died or is disabled, that we would apply for their survivor's benefits through Social Security, railroads, or veterans. And we already do that, but at this point, we can use those funds towards the kids' cost of care. The legislation says now we need to save it for the kids, so when they go out of care, they have it, which is well-intentioned, but ultimately it makes the counties pay more for the care, and there's no backfilling that happened. And so just those kinds of things are impacting allocations that are already not adequate. And in Colorado Works, some of the things that are being looked at the federal level, they're not part of the big beautiful bill, but they're being considered is to reduce the amount of reserves that could be available in states. And right now, you all know that our county reserves in TANF are $100,000, which is more than our annual allocation. It's because of how small we are that we can keep that higher level of reserves. So what's been proposed is that states could only keep 15% of their allocation as a reserve. I don't know what would happen for each county's separate reserve, but that could be a big impact.
So you're saying our 100,000 would be 15?
It could be.
15,000.
I mean, we don't know that yet. We don't know what's gonna
That gives
happen.
us no cushion at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they're also looking at changing the rule that allows us to pay for like the summer program. Right now we can help pay for any families whose incomes are less than $75,000. And they're gonna reduce that to 200% of the federal poverty level. So like a family of four, that would be about $62,000. So there'd be fewer people who we could help through the summer program. I don't know how many people that would kick off the program, but I mean, kick off of us being able to pay for it, they could still attend the program. I know the school would make that work. So those pieces are not part of the federal legislation. It's just things that are being looked at federally. And then childcare, we've talked about before. There's some federal rules that'll go into place, not this year, but next year, which will really skyrocket the cost of childcare. And so it's possible that those might be backed up at the federal level. They may not happen. The biggest one is having to pay childcare costs based on enrollment instead of attendance. So if you have your kid enrolled for 5 days a week, whether they go or not, we pay for it for 5 days a week. Now we pay based on how many days they go. So yeah, they're enrolled for 5 days, but they only went 2 days, so that's all we pay for. So
But that was so that the person providing the service can count on that.
Exactly.
That income. It's hard to plan if you don't know what that income's gonna be.
exactly. So they're all great things to help providers, but so I'll just keep you informed with sort of the child welfare, childcare, Colorado Works stuff. Right now, that's not anything that necessarily needs to be advocated for, but I did want to share about the Medicaid and the SNAP because that's a moving target right now. You have any questions for me? I'm happy as you think more about it. I can find statistics and send you information if there's anything specific you're looking for.
No,
Thanks for the good news.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the main thing is that
Honestly, I thought it was gonna be worse.
Yeah, no, yes.
the main thing is I know we'll figure it out. We've
Yeah.
been through stuff before, and I think whatever ultimately gets passed will not be nearly as dire as how it looks right now. And if it is, we'll figure
it's
it
hard when
out.
legislation is passed with good intentions, like say, we want schools to be funded by 25% more. But where's that money gonna come from? You know, but you got a mandate now to do it, and the only way you're gonna do it is take it from somewhere else in the budget, and that's. Even though there's good intentions, I don't know, we just need a little revamping of being able to keep taxes instead of having to give them back and different things like that. And I'm just pushing towards those other programs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our allocations for the coming year for social services, which starts July 1st, should be pretty flat. A couple of them might go up, so we'll be fine at the local level. And then if things change federal, we'll adjust.
Just so many unknowns.
There are so many. So, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you guys.
Um, Do you want to write a letter to us? I mean, do we?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at
I
it.
was gonna say
Yeah.
that.
You want to do it by consensus, or you want to make a decision?
Let's just vote on it at the next meeting with it when we have a letter in hand. Does that sound good? To submit that, that sound, I don't think there's, well, I don't know, does it need to be submitted before that? Cause the same stuff, okay. Yeah, I'll take a stab at it, and I think we can have something ready by next meeting, and we can just vote on it then, if that's okay.
That'd be fun.
Okay.
Letter, definitely.
Yeah, and that way we can
Worry about.
pass around.
This one.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of have a little bit of time to pass around and get comments from everybody, and I think it helps us write a better final product, so. Yeah, I might need some help with Martha with numbers. Make sure we have everything correct again. That's always the hardest part is, you know, the people who work with the numbers and see them
Get
and
the
have the
correct
history, get the right, I think it has an impact when you start tallying things up and getting finals. Bevan, you will be next, so if you come on up here, we can start talking, we'll wait for Scott to come back before we start talking official stuff, but, yeah. We aren't even that far behind to be, which is surprising. Considering the breadth of topics that we've covered this morning, it seems all right.
Right on schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. How's it going?
It's good.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah. See, you look like you're getting a little sun.
I got a little sun, just I'm overly dressed.
Okay.
Okay.
You're getting tan. Not even red, tan.
Oh, that's just hot from dealing with residents.
Okay.
No, it's, I don't know where I got this. We were out cutting cars last night,
Huh?
but it was not sunny. So
You get the reflection of the spark, you know.
just flush, I'm just cherry.
Getting the welding tan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we were welding.
No. The opposite.
Yeah.
All right.
Need to stretch.
Yeah.
Right?
You're my safety under the.
67 years old, my friend.
Uh,
I'm not far from it.
Yeah. I had to snap boxes off the floor a couple days ago and I'm paying the price for that.
Oh. Oof.
I know
Maybe
better.
you need the car cutting material.
Yeah.
Put 'em in
Jaws of life.
the jaws of life, they put 'em down.
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome, Devin. We have your report here in front of us. You guys have any questions on the report before we get a little more?
I added to it, if there's anything else you have questions about, I think. I've done some workshops, obviously, one of the important ones was the ASIP training in Avon. And that is basically taught me and certified me to train and do assessments of homes for the risk of igniting or catching fire in a wildland fire. So the purpose is to reduce the risk and harden the home to wildland fire when either flame over like a crown fire or embers. And there's a lot more to it than most people think that cutting trees down is the way to approach it. And it's really, if it's a live tree, they can be fire resistant. But it's really about cleaning the house, the area around it, reducing, limbing some, reducing the biomass.
Don't start the firewood next to the house. Don't put the
Yeah,
lawnmower
yeah.
next to the house.
Exactly, fuel, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's something that Jim, Donovan and I are working on to educate residents this summer. And I went to it quickly in May, last minute to try and prepare for training and reducing that risk in town. So I'm be working with the fire department to try and possibly train some of the volunteers to help me with assessments when residents choose to have that done.
Yeah, because I remember even, we couldn't offer that service to Cascade, Cascade wanted to know, how can we do this? And I says contact, Durango Fire Department, because they had a person who does that, and they came up with that and stuff, but it'd be nice if we could do it from our end too, so.
Yeah, and I've been in touch with the fire marshal in Durango too. We have a good working relationship, and I've informed him of a date in June where they're gonna be doing training, and we're pushing to have a training offered probably in Durango for next year. So.
I'd be interested in going to that training.
Okay, cool.
If that happens, and I think you had told me that you went to that and we had a conversation about that and just been thinking a little bit about, how important that is for our community and some potential things that we could talk about. I think especially in the county, when we talk about county building, it's something that we discuss as part of our, application process for improvement permits, but it's something that I think we generally kind of, say like, think about fire mitigation, but we recognize that we have conflicting parts in our code with
Right.
screening and shading and also the fire mitigation and clearing trees, but I think it could really benefit us to have a little bit more definition to that in our county code and also as officials to have some training either as county commissioners or as the planning commission also, I think could really benefit from it. Our builders could really benefit from having a training like that to really understand what's going on and.
Yeah, and I'm also doing like building science. I went to a workshop in Ridgeway that was put on by Eco Action Partners, which I'm also associated with on the code adoption. But the workshop, we discussed building materials, discussed Marshall Fire, and that was also reviewed in the ASIP training. And that times are changing, the environment's changing, homes are changing. We've lasted this far. A lot of it is assists in us preventing further ignitions or more work for the fire department.
Right.
I was asked how many structure fires can you put out at once? And I said 2, maybe 3 if they're next to one another.
Lucky, yeah.
Right, and so, and that really nationwide, it's anywhere between 2 and 10. If you're in LA, they might be able to handle
They
10.
can call in other people, but
Right,
it's not
but
gonna happen here.
Beyond that.
Yeah.
So we're dealing, when you think about Marshall Fire as being a wind-driven event off embers from grassland, that's concerning. And we're
You have
primarily
to
all
think
new
about that
homes.
worst case scenario, because
Right.
you get a wind driven event like that here, I mean, look how dry these sheds are in the alleys and the weeds next to propane tanks and things like that, that could be.
Yeah, so I'm not looking to scare the community. I just want to do all that we can preventatively to reduce the risk. And it's something that is already being approached by insurance companies. So I've seen a letter to a resident from an insurance company that references a list of things that they're gonna want done. I also have a friend who was dropped by their insurance company for having sent them a picture of their house and the wood pile next to it. So there's a big concern, a growing concern from insurance companies after Paradise Fire and Lahaina and the list goes on. So I want to do what we can in our community because we have, in spite of our efforts, we do have limited resources when it gets that big.
Have you looked at the Resiliency Act,
Mhm.
the new guidelines and regulations?
Yeah, going through that.
And are you feeling like it makes sense to go ahead and anticipate those? And I love the training and everything else. Are you doing your training and advising people consistent with what those proposed regulations are?
I haven't begun advising as far as, officially. So that's why I'm reviewing that to incorporate that as well, because that's important. Right now, it's just getting, if it's a conversation briefly to get them thinking about it, but then we'll get into the weeds, so to speak, on definitively, affecting and hardening the home.
So those regulations are, done for purpose of the statewide resiliency board. And it's my understanding there's an extension now for counties to adopt it or adopt something as stringent or more so. But it's a 40-page regulation. I don't see there's any harm in saying, hey, look, here's the state resiliency board's regulations that they are most likely going to be put in place here in the next year.
Right.
I would just hate to have us tell someone something. And then these regulations are out and maybe they're more stringent than even we're telling them or advising them or suggesting to them.
Yeah,
Things like that. It's a really sticky time right now, and then the concern by a lot of folks is that you know, the insurance companies are gonna latch on to these state resiliency rules and regulations for denials. And I don't know if you guys have read them, but they're coming and it's gonna be basically something that the board is currently anyway, the board is gonna have to adopt pretty much wholesale, and it's about 40 pages. And it's very proactive in terms of having to inspect and all that. Now, the one question I have is, I don't know if we're in the mapping for the interface areas. If we're not in the, if this isn't an interface area between development and
like
residential,
Wooey.
it will be.
Wooey is the,
Yeah, are we in that or not?
I'm not sure on that, honestly. I think
Yeah.
Cascade would more likely be in it
Yeah,
than we're isolated by the passes.
yeah.
So,
We've heard from some property owners that they've had trouble with their insurance companies for being too close to certain areas and we've seen some maps, the one that's from Jim mostly. The one that's really concerning is basically anywhere that looks like a wetland is basically considered to be a fire hazard.
Oh.
Because it's dense vegetation, and so even if it's wet, you know,
Well,
if you're close to it,
There,
then
there
a lot
was
of those.
somewhere there was a fire in a wetland here pretty recently.
Sure, yeah,
And I'm.
I don't think they account for them being wetlands versus not wetlands, though. I think they just see it as dense vegetation and a fire
Oh, I see
hazard.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
so if we're in these resiliency map areas where these rules are going to apply. It's very, very proactive. It requires, and it's unfunded, by the way. It requires the municipality, the state, whoever's enforcing it, to go out and inspect every single home in that area. And then re-inspect, I believe it's every 5 years. And then basically monitor if somebody, for example, changes the siding on their home. If they change, if they don't have a fire resistant siding on their home and they replace more than 25% of their siding for maintenance purposes, then they have to do the whole house in fire resistant materials. So it's very onerous, but the only question I have is, I'm not sure we're in it other than maybe Cascade.
yeah, I'll verify that
Would you?
with Jim, yeah.
Yeah, and it's on the website. I could probably pull it up but I think you're gonna have to look at it anyway. But you know, it's Cheryl Rogers actually, Plata County came out against it. Said it was on an unfunded mandate. We don't have the money to enforce it.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about hiring someone that, you know, it's described to me that you could have 3 people that's all they did was start inspecting houses in La Plata County.
and by the time they got through the first ones, they'd be back at that.
Yep.
Yeah,
And no funding from the state.
yeah.
That's ridiculous.
And from the training, the land and the ground. Gutters are more, and what's on the roof are more important than the siding. Now, the fact that we had metal siding on most homes for the first 3 to 4 feet is a big help, because that does make a difference. That area, but above that, I mean, unless you have a fire right next to it, it is less significant. Roof material, there are homes still in Denver area that have cedar shake roofs, and they are no longer being allowed to be reinstalled. Most of our homes have metal roof. That's a great benefit. But it's a concern. It's a concern of mine for county homes, and especially new homes that are being developed, and then people that are not from here, maybe, that aren't aware of the risk of fire in their near their home or in their community.
In our county zone, do we require that, their materials have to be fire resistant? I don't think we do.
There is some language as to what the roof.
The
can
roof
be.
has to,
Roof
but as far as fire resistant siding.
No,
they
it's
never
more
address- they never-
reflectivity
they
and
Never addressed that I remember.
it's more color and reflectivity,
Yeah.
but I inform them and I discuss it in planning and in permit review to verify, and I'm adding my list of items to inquire about, because if I see a roof that's designed for Georgia, I let them know and have them reconsider and explain why.
Well, and even just, the idea of requiring 4 foot of metal siding or something like that would be a start in the county or something like that. Not everybody.
Fire resistant siding and
Yeah,
metal siding is,
okay.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
those have to be metal. There are woods right now.
stone, masonry stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That work, but yeah.
Yeah, and there are even composite woods that are very fire resistant and
Yeah.
water resistant. So,
We do have language in our regulations that say that we have to comply with state fire wise.
yeah,
We do have that, okay.
yeah, clearing,
Right.
biomass and burnable around the home, roughly 30 feet. So it does exist. Then it's enforcing it and inspecting the areas.
Sure.
For sure. Along with that, I mean, really, the bigger concern, and that happens more often, is a lightning strike in a forest that's got a lot of, fuel.
Beetle kill,
Right.
here.
Lackawanna.
Right.
Yeah, like the Lackawanna, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it was just off of my property line that a tree got struck by lightning.
2 years ago,
Had
yeah,
to be responded to up there.
I put that one out the second day, it reignited, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. That's more common that, they had a fire recently in Vicedo that was lightning strike, so. It's partly my push to really lay pressure on the federal entities that own that land to assist us in mitigating that fuel and getting it out of there.
Sure.
So if there's anything that I can express my concern with, that's probably the greatest, because that's probably where we're gonna have fire. And then,
The lightning strike, yeah.
yeah, and then have that extend in our community, just like ice lakes. So, yeah, and then if we get the support and the funding from that, it'll help bring the rest of the momentum toward mitigation.
One other kind of thing that I had kind of thought about with this, and Dennis, you can shock me if I'm out of line here, but was just talking about this is potentially a requirement for people who come through with a land use application, and it could be a good chance for the fire department to be familiar with these sites and these buildings and be able to provide valuable input to homeowners for these things. Is there, and especially with this mandate that you're talking about, if we can get ahead of it with new building and potentially have somebody from our fire department, and you could say that you could be an independent review. It doesn't have to necessarily be our fire department, but if we offered that service for wildland fire and somebody could include it as part of their application, and that would potentially provide a little bit of funding to the fire department to help fund the wildfire
Sure.
program as
Good
well.
idea.
I don't know, it's a high level idea that I had, and I'm sure it's got some issues with it, but I was just wondering if that was something that.
Well, I'm looking at the draft map and it looks like we're in it.
Okay.
And we're not gonna have a choice. And it's gonna have to be designating an administrator to enforce this code. And it's gonna be a year. And It's very onerous. I mean, I'm not overselling this. This is a big deal. So we're not gonna have a choice and it's
It's
just, if
state legislation.
yeah, the state legislation that created the statewide wildfire resiliency board. And the resiliency board was tasked with coming out with statewide regulations for fire mitigation resiliency, wildfire resiliency. And they had to they were tasked with coming up with a map and designating any interfaces between residential and potential fire areas. And then coming up with proposed legislation or regulation, I should say, not proposed, actual regulation of building and existing structures in those interface areas. And then by July 1 of this year, they had to issue their regulations. And then the counties or municipalities, whoever the enforcement agency is going to be, has 90 days in which to adopt those statewide regulations wholesale or something more onerous. It's my understanding that that deadline was extended because some people were saying, you're crazy, we can't do this that quickly. We'd be hiring people and all that. I mean, picture Dolores County for a second. We don't even have a building inspector we don't have a building code. And all of a sudden, in 90 days, we're supposed to hire someone to do this and adopt it and all the infrastructure. At least you guys are in good shape here in terms of enforcement of a building.
Who's supposed to fund this?
We are.
They're throwing all
We
these
are.
regulations
We are.
out and we're supposed to fund it.
We are. And there was a provision in here in the regulations that said if a county has insufficient resources to fund this, then they can ask the state for assistance in implementing and enforcement. However, I was told that there was a state meeting recently within the last month, and they said there's no money.
Yeah, 'cause they don't have it.
You can ask, but.
Yeah, we'll say no.
That's ridiculous.
And so the other concern that people have is, okay, if the county doesn't adopt this or doesn't enforce it appropriately and somebody's house burns down, are we also, looking at some blowback on that? So this is a big deal and I mean, when La Plata County comes out against it that strongly, you know it's gonna cost some money. So I would say, and again, this is a draft map, they're still calling it a draft map. I would double check and see if that map covers us, and then look at those regulations. And then we need to start talking about, I mean, we don't have to amend our code because we're gonna have to adopt this.
Right.
Does this map include the town of Silverton? Do we have to look at every house that's in town or?
No, they will.
When I first looked at it, it was still in draft, so I was waiting for that to be finalized, but. The homes are concerned, honestly, I'm more concerned about like South Mineral and camping areas where. Just immediately for the summer, where a lot of forest fires start is at a
Campground
campfire.
for lightning strike.
Right.
The thing is, and they're talking about the interface zone, is the town in the interface? I see Bertramsville as an interface, because the forest comes right down to Bertramsville, but I don't see the interface down at that end of town or something, I mean, we're closer here, but. So where's the interface at? If the whole town's the interface, then we got a problem, because we have to inspect every single structure in town.
We've got waterways, protecting us to some extent, but there's still.
But they don't protect us.
They don't, I mean.
70-mile-an-hour winds, we're gonna be covered in embers. Anyway.
Yeah, they can travel 2 miles.
It's like a radius around certain areas, and so like interesting comparisons of different properties that the places that were interfaces and within the radius of places in town were pretty strongly wetlands.
Right.
The red is the draft.
And
map.
anywhere within a radius of the
So
RV
even
park.
some parts of town are in that.
Some places near the river are interfaces, even though they're next to the river, you know?
All that is up there too. But think how many structures are within just this, and that puts that
Oh, yeah.
pressure on us to inspect.
Well, not us.
Oh,
It's the enforcing, and so this is, everyone's getting a little bit. If it's in the town, then
Town
that's
has
probably the town, if it's in the county, it's the county. There can also be IGAs
Yeah.
to have enforcement. And you know, there was some discussion in other areas that, well, maybe the fire district could be the but I don't see how you do that, because now you've got this interplay between inspecting buildings and approval of buildings, and I don't think that's doable, and they don't have the money to do that either.
how do you
So-
pay, how do you pay for this?
So this is evolving, but I would try to get in front of it by looking at it and assuming.
Yeah.
Assuming we're either in it now or we're gonna be in it in the future, and we might as well say. Here are the new regs that are most likely gonna be adopted and start just living with them.
Do you have the right, do you have the right to charge a homeowner for doing an inspection?
That's a good question.
Cause that would help alleviate some of the problem.
And these inspections in the county, realistically, you know, a lot of the newer, you know, buildings that are going up here. Are already kind of probably following this, cause people are aware.
Right.
It's the older structures, you know.
We're all right with.
And then the biggest problem is South County.
Yeah, the problem that, and some of the issues with this, just from an enforcement perspective in my mind is. So especially in town or on the fringes of town. If somebody comes in and rehabs a home. Are they pulling permits always, or does it have to be a certain level of?
A certain level, you know. There are two ways to approach that. There's a dollar amount, which right now is like $500, which I'm not enforcing because. You know, it's too low a number. We are, after the new adopted land use code. We're requiring all construction to come through planning and myself. And then we can evaluate whether or not they need a permit. On a dollar amount, depending on like a percentage of what they're gonna do to the home, kind of trips whether or not they're gonna be required to have a permit, so.
So we're in so much better shape than most places, because we're already, you know, you're already proactive in terms of building codes, you're proactive in terms of remodels at a certain level.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't think this is gonna be that big a deal for us, because we have you already doing this already.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I think it's really just gonna be getting familiar with the new regs, and they're very, I mean, I'm looking at roof coverings, and I mean, almost everyone is using these building practices for new building anyway.
Already,
yeah,
And so I don't think it's as big a deal for that. I think the harder part is gonna be the remodels and
they're
telling-
retrofits, you know.
telling people that, you know, sorry, you're gonna now have to replace all of your siding, not just.
It's-
I mean,
A lot of the newer products, you know, people are using them just because they're more cost effective and easier to maintain up here.
I mean, the one problem I see is for the county, I mean, if somebody's doing something in town, you're gonna see them.
Yeah,
A lot of times. You don't see people out in the county doing stuff.
yeah.
Especially after they get their CO,
Uh,
especially after they get
well,
their
yeah,
CO.
once they've got their CO, they, you know, if they wanna do, they wanna make some changes or they just do it and.
Right, I mean, I do inspections, I do drive-bys. And most of the residents know that I work with a carrot, not a stick. But I do wanna develop a relationship so I know what they're doing. And to be supportive and doing it right and doing it once. And there are others that take advantage of it, and I've. You know, I check on them more often,
And there's enough eyes out on the county, I mean.
Sure.
Especially my dirt biking days, if I saw anything that was being built and didn't know about it, I'd report it.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, there's no. this might not apply to a cabin being constructed, it looks like it does, but if it doesn't. I don't know, I might suggest you just adopt this code applicable to the entire county, I
Right.
mean, we don't have that many building areas in the county anyway.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem that much more onerous, and this is me going through it once quickly, so.
Yeah, it's not. What they're, requiring is not that far off from what we're building to right now. But it is, I haven't started assessments because I wanna.
Yeah.
I wanna do that once this is locked in and approved. And then we have more to chew on in terms of presenting it to residents and saying, hey, this is good, this is now mandated, so.
Yeah, so this is coming, and the only thing I would suggest is that when you get a chance, when it becomes, I think this is it, this is now the official. And when you get a chance to go through it, and I'm gonna bet you're already there. And so maybe you and I and Willie can just talk about, hey, is this gonna be a big deal for us or not? And you might wanna touch base with and talk to the town about, hey, what are you guys doing about this, or kind of thing, because I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'm incorporating it in any conversation I have with somebody who's building. I mean, we had 2 floods in town. Inform them of automatic water shutoffs.
Yeah.
This is something that insurance companies give a reduction, a rebate on if you install it.
I didn't even know that existed.
They do, yeah, and there are, when we update the metering in town. They are often incorporated in the metering, but this is a app-based. You have full control over it wherever you are, as long as you have connection and, but it's a stopgap. It's also, everyone assumes that it's only gonna happen in the winter. Well, you can blow a water line on your washing machine.
Yeah.
In the middle of summer, and it's gonna have the same effect.
Yeah.
So it's just steps to help mediate risk, and that if we can do it in new construction, or even, I called friends back east to let them know about it, because if they're away for a chunk of time, I leave my house for more than 2 days, I shut my water off. I just don't have to worry about it,
Yeah, and I think it's, yeah, like I said, I'm so glad that you guys have such a good infrastructure in place already for inspections and building permitting and land use code and everything else. This is gonna be.
We have a lot in place. When you said they don't even have a building code in Dolores.
No, we don't.
And there's other counties like that. I remember, as far as zoning and stuff, and backcountry zoning especially, there's a ton of counties that don't have any.
Montezuma County doesn't have a building code.
no building code,
And
yeah.
does Mineral County have one?
And
And I remember asking the Lake City guy, you got him backcountry regulation, he goes, why? Yeah, that was his answer, that was years ago, but.
Yeah.
So I mean, for you guys, I think this is a good plan, if you just sort of become comfortable with this, and then let's wait and see when they finalize the map, and then circle back around, talk about adopting it as it, and I'm assuming that maybe put a bug in the town's ear if they're not watching it, as something that they're gonna have to do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially looking at that map.
And, yeah, but I'm not panicking up here at all.
Yeah, I think being on the fire department, it gives me more weight and credential in terms of expressing my concerns, because I'm letting them know I'm gonna be one of the people potentially showing up to put this out, so I need involvement.
The other thing is, I'm not sure what we use for referral agencies when someone's doing a improvement. You talked about bringing the fire department in on, or the fire authority in on applications and things like that. I know my other county and other counties have a list of referral agencies that every application goes to. Do you do that?
Generally, we notify, BLM, Forest Service, fire authority,
Yeah.
and then depending on what the application is, there might be somebody else that if it's within, I forget what the distance is around the town, then we have to notify the town.
Yeah, 3 miles, whatever. Yeah, so our applications go out to, I mean, weed districts and all sorts of different places, and no one ever responds, except the Forest Service and the BLM usually respond. But
And then we notify every property owner within 1,500 feet.
yeah. But
Forest Service BLM used to respond. Maybe not so much anymore.
maybe not.
Yeah.
Well, probably not, but anyway, I think we're in good hands, and I think if you, like I said, let's just circle back and make sure we're in compliance.
And I mean, depending upon what the fire authority is open to and the county, I'm open to providing this service. It's gonna benefit us all if, whether we're like, my initial thought was to not charge for an assessment. We can get into that later,
But
but
for like a new build, I think you could.
well, new build,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
I'm doing that in part in the planning review and in the permit issuance, right? So there are stipulations that they've got to meet. I'm going through it now with, roofs and snow drop,
Yeah.
putting in snow guards and requiring that in certain areas if they don't alter the roof design. And I let them know ahead of time, but and the same could be said with the fire mitigation. I let them, and certainly after the I've let people know before I did the training. Now I've got the accreditation to,
You'll see it.
yeah. So
the way this is written right now, before they have to, anyone doing new construction has to come to you for or to the code enforcement person, whoever is going to enforce this fire resiliency code. They have to come to you and apply for a permit, and then in the permit process, you have to go out and do a site inspection.
yeah, we do that.
And all that, but this is a separate permit, not just a building permit.
So there is a funding collection mechanism for that.
Yeah, that's what I was getting.
Yeah, I'm thinking more in town retrofits. Certainly new construction is easier.
Shed modifications.
Yeah, there you go. ADU shed modification.
Please surround your shed
Yeah.
with tin.
And in like South County, the Durango Fire District we've agreed to, and we're enforcing sprinklers in all structures, home structures in that area, not just
God, if I had
multifamily.
sprinklers, I'd want
What's
that
the-
automatic shut off.
What's the saying about decks, Dennis? Have you hit that yet, or we can talk about it too once everybody's been through it?
Yeah.
That's when you and I talked about. You said decks are not a huge, thing.
Depends upon their condition and their materials,
Yeah, but in
they-
general, like if you're making everybody switch from having a wood constructed timber decking to metal and Trex and stuff like that, could be a little onerous for some people.
They call it structure hardening, and then looks like they've got roofing, roof valley flashings, gutters, downspouts, ventilation openings, protection of eaves, exterior walls, exterior wall coverings, flashings, under floor enclosures, decking. Unenclosed deck shall have the deck walking surface constructed of one of the following, blah, 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 blah. So you're probably,
Just the walking surface though, not the framing.
yeah, it looks like you're probably having to Trex the whole,
dimensional lumber is,
yeah.
it takes a lot to burn that. You really.
Yes.
Almost need it, right, especially, and, but they're talking about the walking surface. Yes, there's some truth to that, a Trex deck versus a old wood deck that might even be pressure treated, the Trex is gonna have a better survival rate. Some of the concerns that you mentioned, venting of the eaves, soffit, ridge, those are all, most screening is for, birds, small varmints. Now they have, which are like quarter inch to half inch, you know, grid. Now they're down to 16 or less for embers. So there's specific ember mesh that you can use that limits that from entering the home. And it's a common, as well as under the deck, so you can screen under, so no embers can fly under and start,
Yeah, I mean, I see this as just another chapter in our land use code, and that's what we're talking about. There's just another chapter in either the land use code or the building code, and then maybe a separate permitting fee for it, due to the requirement of a site visit.
inspection, yeah.
And all that stuff, so it's all very doable, and I think if we just watch it,
Yeah.
and it's a good idea, I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I don't like the unfunded mandate coming down from the state, but when you've got entire swaths of area that are becoming uninsurable, and you can bet the insurance companies are gonna start denying insurance if the municipality or county doesn't adopt these standards, It almost looks like it was written for the insurance company.
But they had some.
You think so?
And this brings up vacation rentals too, the possibility of doing inspections on them to make sure that
I think that's fair.
the grounds are safe,
Yeah.
that they have proper mitigation in the home, fire extinguishers, smoke detectors. In the event that they have sprinklers that
Escape route.
escape routes, yeah, for sure, so.
And we can charge for that, so.
We can, and we upped the charge this year to $100 for that at vacation rentals, and I don't think it's out of the question to do that. And it's certainly gonna take me time, and in certain areas, the resident has to be there, but I can start by doing a visual and referencing, hey, we need to discuss this, but if we can put vacation rentals into the inspection regimen, then that would be
Yeah.
beneficial.
This county and this town have cutting edge emergency services, and so I think it's pretty neat if you sort of have cutting edge, forward thinking fire prevention services. That's just my opinion, not illegal, but I just think it's good to be on the front.
And, it also kind of puts us thinking about, they have kind of come to the proposals with, having a crew that can not only respond to fires, wildland fire crew, but a wildland fire crew can keep them busy doing mitigation, and then we can go after grants or I thought they were supposed to be doing that this year. Didn't we have something that was gonna help fund some mitigation or something like that? Wasn't that this summer? I thought.
What we tasked them with was putting together a plan this summer. And identifying potential grant sources and then coming back. This fall during budget year. Well, we did work with Cascade Village. And they did apply for some grant funding, they were turned down, we had committed 20,000, I think. They did some mitigation work and we ended up reimbursing them. For up to that 20,000 that we had earmarked.
It'd be nice if we had a wildland fire crew that could run down and charge Cascade 20,000 or 30,000 for mitigation or something like that, so.
I think
I like the idea.
Their ideas.
Yeah.
When I worked for the Upper Pine, they had fire mitigation going constantly, and they would, subdivisions would hire them to come in and do fire mitigation for the entire subdivision, and most of it was grant funded, but it wasn't cheap, but they'd have whole crews from the fire department go out with machinery and shredders and go to town, and it was a decent amount of income coming in every year.
Yeah, and if we can tie that in with defueling the forests around us, you know, fed land, then that's the opportunity to get, if the feds can't provide the workforce, then maybe they can provide some of the funding that can help us keep a wildland and fire crew going
Yeah.
year round.
Yeah, because if you're just basing it on responding to fires in a good year, there's no fires.
Right.
You want them doing fire mitigation, then just to be able to come kind of help fund that and generate some funds, so.
Yeah, and we have several hot shots and a smoke
Yeah.
jumper in town, that, some have expressed interest in participating in a crew here.
Sure.
I attended a vehicle extrication course in Ridgeway for
Oh,
2 days,
last
a couple
week,
weekends ago, and, it was taught by some of the best in the country and really valuable, and Ridgeway's looking to make that kind of a hub for the Southwest area, to do further structural and vehicle type, fire response.
People hate hydroaxes on federal ground. Didn't we run into that? Remember? Was that a hydroax project up here where people were complaining that? Or am I thinking of a different county?
I don't think it's.
Does sound
You
familiar.
know what a hydrax are, that big, do you know what a hydrax is?
I don't know what a hydrant is.
Oh, it's the,
Lightweight.
like a front end loader with the drum on it. And,
Yeah.
just goes through and shreds and can take trees right down. Like,
Well, it won't work that well in this county,
you'd be shocked. I mean, they,
really, sort of steepness and
oh,
stuff like that.
yeah, my ex-father-in-law, had a hydroax business, and man alive, he was busy, and, yeah, anyway. Yeah,
I
they're
know,
very
I know,
effective.
I know what you mean. I've seen videos of them in action where they just deploy a fleet of them and just clear cut areas, basically.
Yeah,
So what
Yeah.
BLM or.
They have to be really,
using when
really big.
they are
For here.
really big.
Yeah,
They're
I'm more
really-
familiar with some of the other more specific, forestry stuff where they're harvesting timber instead of just clear
Right.
cutting it, where it's like,
All kinds of
they
applications,
got the
excavators.
grabbers and the saws that come in and then.
They're like that size with they're
Yeah.
usually four-wheel machines, low pressure, they don't damage, forests. You can run them in the winter, put chains on them and run them in the winter. And, for undergrowth, small stuff, leave the big stuff, it's amazing how quickly they can do acres and acres and acres, and,
You do the BLM method, it's just bulldozers and chains and just take everything out.
Have you guys seen the goat fire mitigation? Well, they send in like just 100 goats to eat all the undergrowth.
That makes sense.
They're doing a lot in like San Diego and places in California. I've seen some places doing it. Yeah.
Then you can eat the results.
Yeah, I know a guy in Delta who's got about 300 or 400 goats on his property.
yeah, they'll eat thistle and everything.
Oh yeah, everything.
I guess the two issues that I wanna address were, just discussing, can we discuss County Road 2, the construction and, speed enforcement
Sure.
out there?
We can discuss it.
Okay, yeah, no, I just, and the other is code adoption, IBC, IRC. I'm looking to adopt that for town in for next year. Because the state is mandating energy code adoption to 2021s. So it's something that I wanna.
Energy
Address
code,
the problem.
the energy code's interesting, right? It needs to be solar ready.
Yeah.
Every structure has to be solar ready.
That's not as big a deal as, for some, you can incorporate it into a modular service and panel unit. But it's solar, it's EV ready, having that all in line,
EV ready as well.
EV ready, yeah.
That means you gotta have 50 amp wires running to places.
Well, you run it to the garage, or they're usually,
Yeah.
or outside the building. but
Garage, what are those in Silverton?
I don't know.
That'd be nice.
So. The energy code is addressing, there's actually 21 was more stringent in our values. They've reduced that some back to 2018, our values, so. I'm pushing to go to 24 because it'll be the most current code. And then we look at doing a 6 to 8 year readoption.
Instead
And
of every 2 years with,
right, or
2014, 2000.
we're still in 06, so.
Yeah,
And my concern there is just that we're no longer building cabins in the county. We're building, multi-million-dollar homes. And they are building it to a higher standard than 06 in many cases. But if we have something that we can enforce at a higher level, we have that opportunity. And it also, I'm working with Eco Action Partners on getting all of the nearby municipalities to be on the same code. It's easier, for builders, it's easier, the fire department would like it because we can, and I'm working with Durango Fire as well on it. So, and the fact that we're sharing, area of coverage, that it's important that we're aligned.
what steps do we have to do to do that? Probably that's a question for Dennis, as far as that.
I don't know, I've never even looked at our building code, so I'm not sure, yeah, I'm not sure how we adopted it last time. I thought it was adopted already jointly between the town and the county. It's not.
Yeah.
I think Bevan's saying 2006 though.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we've just adopted them by resolution, and well, we amend the land code, it's actually in the land use code that we've adopted such, and then when we, change, we just adopt it by resolution.
Well, that's really easy
Yeah.
because I have a list of things we're already changing in our land use code right here, so.
And we amend, like, that's largely what Eco Action Partners is doing, is helping these municipalities amend and look at the code and verify whether it's necessary or applies to them. You cannot make the code less stringent, I believe is the terminology. But you can make it more stringent.
Sort of funny, you don't have to have a code at all, but you can't make it less
And
stringent.
well, this is how we're in Colorado. We're able.
Yeah.
To adjust that. So it's just, I'm totally open to amending it where in the areas that we feel are necessary, and I'm looking at it both for town and county in the process, but.
I'm sorry, what version were you suggesting to the board that
24.
2024
Yeah.
UBC?
Yeah, so it's IBC, IRC, IFC, PC, IEC.
Say all those.
IBC, International Building Code.
Yeah.
IRC, Residential Code. IFC, Fire Code. IPC, Plumbing Code. IEEC, the Energy Code, Existing Buildings, IEBC.
Wow.
It's extensive.
And then add to that fire resiliency code, maybe.
Yeah. Electric is mandated by the state, so they're right now 2021 NEC.
Do we need
National
to say
Electric
that?
Code. What's that?
Do we need to say that?
No, we don't.
Cause we don't do that.
Right.
Okay, so 2024 IBC, IRC, IFC, IPC, IECC, IEBC, and then whatever fire resiliency code we end up coming up with. And then, so I'm assuming that we've got some time. This will go hand in hand with revising our land use code. And we can circle back on this.
Yeah, energy is not till really July 1st or June 30th
Oh,
that of next year, I'm sorry. Sorry. But I generally would like to do this in the winter months when, I mean, like, I'm looking at the beginning of the year, new year, because there's lots going on, the planning wise, if I know that someone's gonna be
Yeah.
submitting, for approval in the winter, I'd let them know if they're in that gray zone, that they're gonna need to design it to the newer code.
Do you know what, Lake County is? Or where
The
they're.
county is 15 and town is 18, I believe.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the fire protection district.
They're looking to go to 24 as well.
That's,
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it, and I've talked with Steve Rinaldi, the marshal there, and he is in agreement, like, let's all try and get on the same time schedule so that, and the building code, so that we can change at, in the same interface, the same time schedule.
Is the board's pleasure to go ahead and sort of take this direction and, obviously you're not approving anything today, but does that sound good to you?
It makes sense.
Do you know, I've talked to a few builders and architects and things like that, and nobody's really expressed any huge reservations with it.
Yeah, I think what I get the most resistance on is continuous installation. And that means putting a R5 to R10 on the outside of the structure. And as well as installation in the bays, the interior. The reason for that is it helps mitigate thermal bridging, which is basically transferring energy from the inside out. So when you look at a roof and you can see where the rafters are, on a cold day, you can see ice crystals build up where the rafters are. That's transfer of heat through the building, through the wood and out. And so there is heat loss there. It's a little bit more wear and tear on the home. And so it's an attempt to help mitigate that, and it is effective. I've done it with homes here, but there's also, there'll be a clause where if you can achieve R30 on the inside wall, that works and you don't have to have continuous. So for those that don't want to do that, the problem is not so much the expense on labor. So it takes more time because you have to clad the outside of the house with insulation before you clad it with siding. And
It's just part of doing stucco if you end up doing stucco.
Right.
It just depends on kind of
what style of, right. And
I think is a longevity factor, like
Oh.
the reason beyond like thermal bridging and energy savings is it mitigates moisture damage to wall structures.
Yeah, it has the potential if it's done right.
Yeah.
And there are ways you can do it where you, instead of wrapping the house with tieback or using zip, you can wrap the house with foam and tape, and you have a water and vapor barrier all in one shot. So you do have to strap it, or they're developing new fastening mechanisms where you can attach cladding, through that foam or through that rock wool or whatever you're using. But
Does it require interior water vapor barriers at all?
that depends on what you're using on the outside.
Okay.
So
Just curious.
yeah, and sometimes it's just paint that is effective. Here it's such a dry climate that you don't face it as much unless you have like a type 1, visqueen or poly, plastic barrier that won't let anything in or out. And then you can cause mold, you can cause problems with moisture there. So there's a lot of emphasis on allowing the house to breathe, and yet this brings up the tightness of the house. So another requirement will be having the home blower door tested. And that means you're checking to see how many holes are in the house, how tight it is. Because the code requirement will be that it maintains a certain level of tightness, so. And that then relates to mechanical air, so you wanna bring in air, fresh air from the outside, and you wanna exhaust stale air from the inside. So mechanical air systems are gonna be required. And that is, it's a benefit, it is a cost, and it can be incorporated in with the heating system as well. Or bath fans, that kind of thing, but
Those two things you just mentioned are adding quite a bit of cost to a home.
they can, yeah. So the other part of this is homes are getting more efficient. So your heating bill is
Yeah,
minimal. I mean,
That was my
That's the
main,
benefit of it.
that was my main concern, was just, you know, the increased cost. Cause it's already pretty expensive to build
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
in talking to the architects and builders, they're kind of like, well, those HRV or ERV, the heat recovery ventilation systems are kind of just standard, because houses are so tight these days that you can't,
right. So
you can't get away without them now.
yeah,
So-
what happened, the result of making a house so tight is you get condensation buildup if it's not breathing properly, moisture on the windows, and that could be on a double or triple pane window. And if you have a fire or even your stove, cooking stove, could have trouble with drawing properly and flaming properly. So in here, in the summer, people don't want to open their windows because of the dust. So and in the winter, they don't want to open because it's so cold, but there are reasons to definitely incorporate mechanical air, and there are benefits to this building method, but it does have consequences. And but I've also seen, I built a house with highly insulated, and their energy bill is minimal, and if they put solar on the roof, it would be zero. And comparatively, if they pay 120 a month for electric, I've seen people pay 800 for electric. And that's not including the propane bill. So the builders are moving more to electric only. And in certain counties, they're requiring electric only, or
That's electrification is the buzzword, that we've
Right.
heard from Eco Action Partners and other folks, and it's something that's viable in some places, maybe even in city limits in Silverton, but it's not something that's viable in the county based on the
No.
off-grid building, but
yeah. And I
but, you know,
encourage, it's a requirement that everyone have two sources of heat.
yeah,
So,
which is usually propane and wood, but I mean, unless you're tied to the grid, but
Right.
yeah, not every property in the county's like that, so.
That's just common sense up here because of electrical outages and stuff like that.
Exactly, that's the other thing you have to take into effect. For Silverton,
Oh, yeah.
because the outages.
well, I appreciate you on that. I guess, can we talk, about County Road 2?
Sure.
I don't know I discussed it with Bruce, and he basically said it's for him to enforce, but it's us to determine what the signage is gonna be, and what the plan is.
Signage is already there.
It's already there.
Right. And is there any
The enforcement's not there.
okay, any additional signage that could be put in place?
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Rusty's been working with Bruce to have the temporary light flashing sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to have that, closer to town to warn people that
Okay.
it's going on. And then they're gonna have road closure signs
Okay.
further up.
Informational road closure.
Informational road closure
For the
sign.
night closure.
But those guys are really concerned that, when they've asked for enforcement help before with water truck and things like that, that they haven't had a whole lot of response. So they're concerned mostly that while they're working out there at night and trying to get things done, that they might have to have extra staff out there to be able to basically, make sure that the road is staying shut down, and they're really concerned about what that'll do for their budget and being able to manage doing the work. And you know, the issues that go along with having somebody who's standing there with the sign try to do enforcement to somebody who doesn't want to abide by it, right? Because they've had a lot of problems with people damaging county equipment and county property and not really giving them any compliance, respect. I don't know how to say it
Yeah, I get it.
when they've asked for it.
What can I do?
Well, I think I think mostly I think that's the conversation that we've had with the sheriff's department. I know that Rusty's had it with the sheriff's department, and I think that's, you know, the thing is that they've asked for more. They've asked for more enforcement on County Road 2 while they're doing this county road project, and it's costing the county a lot of money to try and bring County Road back up to a standard that we won't have some of the problems that we've been having for the last couple of years. And you know, I think we're hoping that the sheriff's department can do what they can out there. And I think, you know, from Road and Bridge perspective, they said, we'll just, you know, we won't know until we start doing the work, whether it's gonna work or not.
Right, and what is Road and Bridge's request for support from the sheriff's department? Is there-
People patrolling on County Road 2
Right.
at all.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
that's the request is, you know, a little bit of patrol and enforcement out there.
Okay.
They're not asking them to sit out there with their lights on, you know, for all night long, but they're asking that they maybe make a run or two out there at night and make sure that, you know, people are aware, people are abiding by, you know, the regulations that are going on out there, and not trying to, and if they call for help, that somebody's gonna actually come out there and help them, because that's been a problem before.
and this is going on just during the week, or is it incorporating weekend too?
Monday through Thursday.
That's,
I asked Rusty to bring the schedule when the actual night work will happen
yeah,
to when we go meet him this afternoon.
Can you
They're
get me
gonna-
that too?
they're gonna try and do it Monday through Thursday. They are concerned that there's one spot on the road that they might have to run through a weekend just because they want to get it
Complete
done.
it, right.
But they're not
Let's put it in
anticipating
the
that.
paper even and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah, we were talking about it.
Yeah, we should, yeah. Yeah,
We talked about getting it in the paper, also getting it, have Jim put it up on a nickel.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Are there gonna be signs?
and I know we don't like it, but we probably should have something on the official Salem County page too about it.
On what?
On the Salem County page on Facebook, we should probably have something too, so that there, yeah, because misinformation
Right.
on that without an official source of it is pretty bad. Or even just to share, you know, link on our webpage.
Is there gonna be a road sign out that informs people prior to the construction? Many, great,
Many.
okay, and the hours of operation?
Yeah, and well, the hours, I don't know if they have.
Yeah, that's why I asked Rusty to bring that to us, so
Yeah.
we have it,
Yeah.
and we can get it out
We
there.
can
I think they were
disperse
planning on
So
having
like-
like a flashing sign
Like
here.
Eureka Lodge and all those places that are trying to have campers and
Right.
campsites.
We'll talk about hours.
Okay.
And we'll see, are you coming this afternoon to the?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay.
When we're out there, make sure we're on the same page. Cool.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good luck with your summer.
Thanks.
Anything else on your list you want to talk about? We got to cover the Cascade and.
Yeah, I mean, I go to
How about your know your neighbor?
oh, no, your neighbor, yeah,
I'd rather not get shot.
yeah.
I don't think we should
I'm not
stop.
mentioning a name.
I don't think we should talk about specific,
I'm not mentioning a name.
specific,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
okay, all right. Okay, just making sure.
Cascade is going along. I'm gonna do a form inspection tomorrow morning. So they're getting the threeplex townhome foundation in, and they're working to get the fiveplex going as well, and hopefully dry it in by this winter. So there's a 3 and a 5. 3 is adjoining the existing townhomes, the 5 is on the other side, kind of the Highway 550 side.
We're good on this one?
This is Cascade Village.
Are we good on those?
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
totally different from our conversation. This is up in the developed up in
It's
South
different than what they were proposing last year where they ran into the issues with
Yeah.
Different group. This was actually a pre-approved, or this was a pre-subdivision.
Oh.
Several years ago, the developer built. I think it was 20 units. He built 12 of them. There was 8 that never got off the ground. But we had a new new developer in there that wants to finish them off. And,
Good.
yeah.
I do. Drive arounds through. Camping areas, South Mineral, MS, Rastra, River Road, Columbine, so I will be monitoring that. I found a fire going on. At Cole Ranch and it was thankfully, Matt Andres. Was doing some clearing. And, but just making sure that if that's going on, the town was notified. Yeah, they were, and he informed me
And the
that,
fire department should be notified.
they were notified as well, and the sheriff, so. So just letting you know, like, that looking at, I guess there are areas where there are campfire rings that. We might look at whether or not they're legal and legitimate or not, because that usually indicates to someone that it's okay to camp there, so.
On private property or?
No, on public. I'm just,
I know that, it's been Megan's. Big mission, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years to, designate more campgrounds and to
Right.
kind of close off some of the ones that are not designated, so.
Right.
If we're seeing stuff like that, I think if we, communicate with her.
If it's on public.
yeah,
land,
and it may be,
But that, she's the one that's putting out the fire rings to designate that.
okay.
Yeah, she is.
Campground.
All right, so I'll get with her, I just wanna make sure that they're legit, and appropriate, you
Yeah,
know.
because they've done a ton up by Molis Lake.
Yeah, but Molis is a great spot, like
They're
on the
doing
lower side of the road, by
yeah.
the old cabin there, as you go down that road, there's a bunch there and on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side of the road from
By the
Spinach
sheep
Rock,
plants too, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of those there's a bunch of those fire ring areas there. Those are the ones that she's designated and usually they have little posts or something next to them that come to designate.
with
as
a
campgrounds,
number
but
on it.
if they're rock basically can't fire rings, then they're not legal and they're not legitimate.
right,
Not that they're enforcing them.
right, it helps me to know where to focus. In areas that, I mean, aside from just making sure that everyone, that. If there's a fire going on, it's attended to, things like that.
Absolutely.
The biggest issue is South Mineral.
I know, and that's why I'll do regular
Yeah.
visits there. I was there 2 weeks ago and.
They're gonna have a really tough time this year there, because
Well,
they don't have the enforcement for it, so,
right.
yeah.
have
There's
minimal,
nobody there, there's nobody doing.
Well,
Doesn't
yeah.
sound-
I think they'll have two
Well, good.
people at times, but
Okay.
not full time.
It sounded good when we talked to Nick, so.
Yeah, and at some point, we might have to consider permitting going up to Ice Lakes.
We asked them about that and they said, it's low on their priority list, or what they've been ordered to do is priorities or things like timber sales and things like that, and the new lift at Purgatory.
Yeah, they're, that got just waylaid.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
That-
Even the Blue Lakes project over there, and talking about permitting the Blue Lakes system over there, that's been set back, but what they've done is they just closed it.
Right.
They're working on an improvement to the area, and so what they've done is they've just closed the whole road into Blue Lakes. So it's just closed this summer.
And that,
Unless you hike over from Snuffles or hike all the way around.
Right. That's not an easy hike either.
No, neither of them are.
Snuffles.
and that might be an option, it might be a consideration for Ice Lakes. I mean, there's still plenty of fire damage mitigation that needs to be,
A bunch, I mean.
right? I mean, to make it even safe,
Yeah.
and I just,
Trail and Clearlake Road too.
right, but then we have to have the power, the workforce to do that,
That's
so,
a fire mitigation tool would be good.
right.
Yeah, and then we have to get the permission, they haven't been able to get the permission to pull any of the wood out of the rivers. Basically because Army Corps won't let them do it.
You mean like the-
I was just up there Saturday or Sunday, I walked up Pandora and
It's a bunch
I
in
mean,
there.
that is just scary what's up there.
Yeah,
Because
it
it
is.
doesn't come down, it's gonna, block the culvert.
It's just log jam after log jam ready to happen.
Yeah.
Is it slide damage up there?
All the logs that are in that,
In the water,
waterfall, they're right at the.
Oh, that thing, yeah, right,
It's a-
right at the end of the campground there.
like Austin said, if you don't have permission to do it, you can't pull them out.
Yeah,
It would be hard to pull them out, but you have that permission.
yeah.
I mean, even as far as firewood cutting, if they could just pull that, there's one log in there like this, you can't get back to, if they could, even if that could be yanked out, a whole bunch of people would have access to that pile.
It's just stacked like this on the waterfall.
It is.
Oh, it is. See, I
Yeah,
didn't
I
walk
mean,
that far.
it's.
Wow.
So, I mean, there are certain areas where it could induce flooding that presents
Yeah.
another problem to us. So what do we do then with Army Corps? You know, we have to take emergency actions to, protect the road or,
You know what, I'm gonna suggest something just for the future. We've had the Forest Service and the, we've never had Tucker or anybody representing Army Corps to a meeting. Why not invite him to a meeting?
that'd be great.
Express our
Sure.
concerns. What do you guys
We
think?
never
about
have
that?
talked to
I
them.
think we've had enough in the last 2 years that I can think of that
Oh, you
warrants
mean,
a. Warrants
a big list of
warrants a-
questions.
Yeah, warrants some question and Q and A discussion, yeah.
Well, like the,
Yeah.
like the office closed,
Their office closed?
the one in Durango, I heard it's done,
Uh-oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Tucker's not our guy anymore, huh?
Tucker's not a guy.
That's what I had heard, so don't be surprised if
Okay.
you hear crickets.
And this brings up, Cascade Road, the mudslide there. They did, next, Excel Energy, owns the Flume, right? The mudslide looks like it was caused by, a failure in that break, and so they did clear the road. None of the landslide debris field was corrected, so I guess I just wanna know what your direction is on that. I can discuss it with Nick Glidden from,
what happens that landslide debris when you put more water on it, is it just gonna flow back out on the road then? I mean,
I don't know, I'm concerned that the debris that's on the creek side gets loosened up and then ends up in the creek. We're very fortunate that it didn't really go that far.
sure.
To me, it's a question of, Nick's already inundated and understaffed.
Yeah.
Is the fact that XL never informed any of us or the county.
Nothing.
Rusty had to go find out because he was inspecting the road, and then, remember, we contacted our sources at XL Energy. I mean, they're the ones that really should correct it.
And I agree, and I'm fine with that. I still have to go through Nick on the improvement of the correction. But yes, can we pressure Excel to clean this up thoroughly and fully? And not
They still
just clear the
have
road?
plenty of money. With
Yeah,
those service stuff.
and that,
I mean, quite honestly, we're not gonna pressure it,
okay,
I mean. One, we don't have the authority because it's all on board,
Right.
Right.
Two, Excel could care less about what's happening in county thing, so
understood,
it's gotta be enforced.
okay.
Okay. I'd like to pressure Excel. Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble.
No, I mean,
I
if we-
used to work for him.
If we had any ability to do it, I would,
Yeah.
but the reality is that
No, I
it's
got you.
all Forest Service and,
Yeah,
I mean, we can contact them and ask. them.
Yeah, I have some,
Yeah.
a couple good sources. I
Okay,
can talk to them.
yeah, and it's,
sometimes just putting a little pressure and making the call and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah,
No, and there's
Yeah.
no problem.
yeah,
with
no,
that,
we don't
but
need to start a fight or anything, just
No,
yeah, and they initially it's corrected, it could use a grader over it, and I'm just concerned about the potential slide of what is down there along the road. On both sides, so,
Yeah, I
Looks
think
like-
most likely the cabin owners are probably more concerned about it and probably
Sure.
have been letting Nick know. That
Oh, I'm sure.
if they're not happy, I'm sure they've been letting him know.
You're right.
Right. It is the pipe that goes across the creek. Looks like it has settled. Is that, do we know if that's the case?
That's a pin stock and,
Okay.
you think it's settled?
Someone told me that they think it settled after it froze and then they had to thaw it out. When it froze, the weight caused it to drop. Just something to look at. I don't know. I just wanna, just avoiding potential future fun. But they gotta be on it, so
Yeah.
not them.
Looks like the leases are the feds terminated the leases as of September for Bureau of Rec and Army Corps. So they might be there for a little while. It looks like they were doged.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. It'd be nice to get an update from them as to
Yeah,
Where they going?
where they're going.
yeah. I just keep a relationship with them.
It'd be better one probably to get them just sometime after July, after the new fiscal year too, because they'll probably have a little better idea as to what's going on.
The article says that
Which at this point,
they didn't even know the leases were maintained.
oh.
Thank you. I'll see you up
Yeah,
there at 1:30.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks for looking at that fire stuff.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
will.
let's bounce it off each other.
Okay, yeah, as I get into it more,
Yeah,
talk with Jim about it more and
yeah,
I'll reach out.
thanks.
Thank you, Bevan.
Thanks a lot.
All right, well, that concludes our appointments here, so we're on to the new business. Well, correspondence, we do have the barbecue here,
Oh, yeah.
June 26th at 4. But yeah, on to new business, treasurer's report. You guys have any questions or comments on the treasurer's report?
Nope.
Let me get your signature on the warrant, because I'm gonna be searching for it, forget. And Dennis,
Yes, sir.
uh,
Yes, sir.
I had a copy to give to you about. That, if you wanted to attend, but it's on your report now.
June,
That passes.
barbecue, the barbecue?
For, this picnic. We're having the BPA and other federal agencies, if you wanted to.
I think I'm gonna be in Mexico.
Oh, man.
Oh, sure.
That sounds horrible.
I don't know, it can be pretty hot.
Might be pretty hot. I asked my daughter where she wanted to go, and she said, let's go to Mexico. I said, it's gonna be really hot.
Really?
Part of Mexico.
Cabo, so it might be a little better over there.
Yeah,
Not quite as humid, I've heard.
yeah,
Yeah.
so. It's breezy in the ocean there too, so. You're right,
I think a drink in my hand by the pool, I'll be okay.
yeah. Careful with the stuff in the water there. I had somebody we knew who went there in like December, and there was like stingrays and jellyfish and all kinds of stuff that they got hit with.
Oh, my.
They were like, we didn't realize we was with Cabo and couldn't get in the ocean.
Oh.
You just gotta do the foot shuffle. Well, jellyfish, you can't do anything about.
Yeah, that's it. They had like a jellyfish migration or something that was coming through that just, sandbagged them, and then somebody got swiped in the foot by a stingray, and they were like, okay, the pool sounds pretty nice.
Yeah,
Right.
we just had to shuffle.
Yeah. All right, on the treasurer's report, just the one thing that I had to, kind of question, heard that we're getting help money cut.
No, the Pilt is fine.
Oh, it's a
a secure rural schools.
the rural
It
schools.
didn't get
Yeah.
renewed, so
Yeah,
instead of $55,000 we got, so.
yeah. I feel bad, but it's a hard one to swallow when the Forest Service is asking us to take more responsibility for
Well,
that,
yeah.
that mineral.
Yeah, no, it is.
To continue to get our funding cut, so, yeah. I know I had talked briefly with Rusty about it and. Yeah, he was like, yeah, that's kind of a hit, that might be a hard one, but he said he was gonna talk to Nick and. You know, they'll do what they can, but they may not be able to, go fix culverts or. If beavers flood the roads, deal with doing it, the road may just have to close,
Yeah, well,
that'd be good.
and we were talking earlier about the. Wildfire mitigation, well. Part of that secure rural school funding was
for that.
you had Title I, Title II, and Title III, and I think it's title. I never remember the difference between which one's Title II and which one's Title III. Title III, I think is money we keep. Title II goes into basically a joint fund for the region, and then you basically submit grants for improvements in the Forest Service, and you go and ask for that funding. Well, that's where a lot of the fire mitigation money came from. It's then years ago, several years ago, that's where we found money to do the bathrooms on Molis and Colbank when they were gonna shut them down.
Yeah,
We went in and got it for that, so yeah. So yeah, it's got some implications. Then it's not the first time that they've didn't renew it, and then the next year they get it back on, but the way things are going now, nobody's even talking about it.
all right, well, any other comments or questions on
I don't.
treasurer support? Sales tax looks, fairly similar to our last discussions, it's running a little above that. Our last year's, but not a lot.
Yeah, no, sales tax is doing good, our lodging tax is a little under average, or not, I should say average, but a little under. Well, yeah, last 3 years, so.
With a bad snow winter, it's kind of to be expected.
No, we'll see how it ends up.
Yeah. All right, public comment. If there's anybody in the public who would like to make a comment, please do so now.
Stand in line.
Seeing no one here. Seeing no one here, we'll go ahead and close public comment at this time and open it up to commissioner and staff reports. Scott, Pete, you guys have
Had an ambulance meeting and we just discussed new building, we have a firm that's gonna wants to take a look at the actual site itself, which means environmental and floodplain and things like that. That's something we as a county may have to think about, is if they come in with drills and drill that soil behind the shops there, we could have a problem. It's something to think about. It's just, you think about all the oil and gas that's been back there, and then they'll, they could discover something that we may have to mitigate, so it's a possibility. Just something to think about.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis is gonna will itself.
Oh, but you can't build a public building without.
You gotta have a geotech, yeah.
Doing
Gotcha.
that,
sure.
and,
Yeah.
and considering just how long that was in use, that county building, I don't know when that was built, like. 30s maybe, or 40s or something like
Right.
that.
It looks
But you
newer
think
than
about all
the shop that I have.
the tractors that were back there and this and that, and were they using. Correct methods to change your oil, or did they just drain it in the ground or whatever? I mean, it's just, I think we just have to be.
Did they have underground tunnels? They did.
Oh, is that right? Okay. And if we're digging foundation.
Well, we're over the top of we put the fire station over the underground thing, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did the fire station have to have a geotech done for all that?
What's that?
Did the fire station have geotech done and all that? For
I think so.
Yeah, you
I'm sure.
probably had a phase 1 or phase
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
phase 2 even, probably automatically phase 2.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I bet they looked at it when they did that.
do you think
Okay.
they did the one that I was saying is, do you think they did the whole thing
No, I mean,
when they did the fire station, or just that area?
Right.
Just that.
But usually if they're doing, they're gonna test the soil for leaks and stuff like that, and I mean, if it's bad there, it's probably bad.
The plumes move farther or something, yeah.
Well, it's closer to the water table right there to wash it all
Well,
away.
I mean,
It is what it is.
I'm sorry,
Hey,
I'm sorry.
for a long time. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
all the stuff that you decide when you want that site, okay?
Yeah,
It is what it is.
it is, so you have to deal with it, so.
And if it's just surface, I mean, that's just,
You just scrape it off,
Scrape it.
put it somewhere,
Yeah.
that's just part of the expense.
you got plenty of repositories around there.
The problem is if
None that are operational.
the problem is if we scrape it, then we have to fill it back up because we don't want to be closer to the
Right.
Floodplain.
to the floodplain. So the cost of bringing more dirt in is
We
probably
may be
worse than.
considering that anyways, trying to raise that level anyway, just to get it out of the floodplain.
Well, and quite honestly, unless you actually have something flowing into the water table, even if you find contaminated
Right.
oil, whatever, you come in and you cap it with,
Right,
you know,
Right.
with dirt, then you're putting that barrier in between and as long as it's not gonna.
well, and I wish we had, like when the carriage house was built, that they had raised the dirt by 2 feet, because all the water flows into the bays there, so you definitely
Yeah,
want
that's true.
kind of water.
There,
Where
it's definitely going down.
Drains outwards.
We've definitely learned some things in building since those were built.
Yeah, they're if their bay doors are gonna face right here and it's lower than the level of the road, that's gonna be.
Yeah, no, it's just things to think about. Is this the location you wanna do? I mean, it makes sense to me, but is this it or not, you know? And
I think we've discussed this, that we beat this dead horse a while, that's the building that they wanted,
Yep.
Scott, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right, it is
Yeah.
a conscious decision
Sure.
we need to make, is that the right location?
but you have to have information, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Floodplain, environmental, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, so.
But I would say to raise for the new building, you wanna do anyway,
Yes,
so that would include a cap anyway, and come back,
yeah,
structural fill.
I think that,
Maybe once we have a mining permit for bridge, we'll have the ability to produce our own fill.
There you
Because
go,
it's not cheap to truck it in.
oh my God,
no.
that's all I got, you guys.
Pete?
I threw something out at earlier, just, I got AAA's meetings coming up and that's a mess right now, so I'll do that for the next meeting. Even though it is June, I, in talking with folks, on the gas station diesel source, I don't hear any talk about them getting generators again, and here it is June. I know it's early, but I was talking to Willie that Parrish and other people, I shouldn't say names, sorry. But other folks in the oil and gas business do have those contained diesel tanks, 1,000 and 3,000 gallons that are already in containment that we can bring up. They rent it for next to nothing, and for this next winter, I think the county should be prepared.
Yeah.
I think it'd be worthwhile to get one,
Yep.
not to be dependent on one source for fuel.
Yeah.
Well,
With all the outages and all the stuff that happens.
Yep.
I mean, quite honestly, we can make them aware of that. It's like, you guys
Right.
wanna put in a generator, we've gotta be prepared.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't wanna make it in form of a threat, but this,
No,
we've gotta do one or,
Make
we have
it
to do one or the other.
Well, if we do it too, then the town's gonna do it and CDOT's gonna do it.
Right.
How much?
And it's not gonna just be wintertime for them, you know, it'll be.
And that's
if
a lot
we're
of
paying for
fuel.
the tank and have the tank, we might as well have it and use it.
It's a lot of
And
fuel.
what's the cost of a generator that would at least power the pumps?
You could find them used on Facebook Marketplace for less than $500.
Oh, so.
Yeah.
Why don't they put one in?
There's a plug for it and everything.
But like I said, I just recently did some work with them in the county, did some work, and there just was no sense of urgency at all, so, like I said, not, they're good people, I'm just saying, why wouldn't the county protect itself with your own tank? I mean, I've got 1,000 gallon myself in containment,
Sure.
they don't charge you anything for rent as long as you use that person to fill them.
Yeah.
And with the county, you can use all red fuel. You know, non-taxed.
Yeah.
And government exempt and the whole deal, I mean, it's a pretty good deal, so now your fuel bill goes down also. As compared to paying retail, which, again, we've all seen that sign, what it is. It's the most expensive, you're right.
Can we get a deal like that for tires? Just kidding.
But I'm just saying, you can save the county some money.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I know it's June, shouldn't be talking about it now, but next thing you know, it's July 4th, Labor Day, winter.
Yep, no, it's just time to get.
and then it's November and you can't put one anywhere.
Did you ever?
Can't get over
You
it.
ever send something
Yeah.
out about asking them to inspect the bridge? Remember we had talked about that, well, he was
Yeah,
gonna.
I made a phone call and got nowhere.
I just got an email from them, they're putting together the annual meetings.
Oh, good.
But they're not
Coming
coming,
up,
they're not coming up, they're gonna do it on Zoom. Last year they came up,
So do we gotta,
every other year they're gonna
we
do
gotta
it.
take our
but we have to-
laptop
we have
out
to-
there
we have
and
to-
film the bridge while we're on Zoom?
no, we,
Or-
well, at that time, gotta get him to come up.
Yeah, and I mean, I can take some pictures and we can share the screen and show them to them via that, but, yeah. But I think.
That wouldn't be a bad thing, to just take a video of it.
Yeah, put it on.
At least it might get one of their engineers up here.
Yeah,
I'm not an engineer, but I thought it looked bad.
Oh, it's not pretty.
Yeah,
I got-
meetings,
Trying to think of what all I had, the letter that we wrote to the town, I got a couple responses back from, Gloria and Carla just saying that they agreed that we should work closer together and that we should, have a meeting sooner rather than later.
all right, well,
Good.
So
Thanks
that's
for-
good.
Thank you for writing that.
thanks for taking the time to put together a very lengthy letter.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was,
I think,
well done.
you know, talked to Willie yesterday too. Willie kind of gave me a really nice, number sheet too of what we've spent in, Anvil, and he said yesterday for our next meeting, we'll have a little better presentation on it, and I think.
Thank you for that, Willie.
I think it's really valuable to look back and see what we've done and what we've accomplished there and what that contribution has cost.
I mean, the first thing that went through my mind when we were talking about an assistant to Dr. Brown, as far, we were just talking about that. That should be a joint funding point. That's just something sort of, it should be joint town and county funding of that position.
Agreed. Yeah, I
I
think
don't wanna
that,
trigger any more letters.
we got, yeah,
I think you just.
we'll start compiling our list. I think we had a meeting a little while ago too, and I can't remember, one of you two was there on Zoom and I was the only one there in person. This was like last year or year before maybe. But I kind of just, it was interesting. I just was like, well, this is kind of what we've been up to at the county, and this is the things and the projects that we're working on. And I think it's a really nice kind of way maybe for us to start that joint meeting with them, is just say like, this is.
What do you guys got going on?
Yeah, what do you guys have going on? What are you guys looking at? And
That's
this is
great.
I think that's like a good way to start where we're at, where we'd like to go, and where we can find, shared
Yeah.
common goals and what resources we have to accomplish those. So
Yeah, whether it's housing or whatever, all those things, and
yeah,
And that,
I think in your letter was perfect to say, we don't need 3 other presentations in the way of this joint meeting.
yeah.
We need to have a focused.
I think when we have that
Joint meeting.
schedule that meeting, I'll try and work with Dana and see if Dana and I can set the agenda. That way, I think it'll be
I think that's a good idea.
a good idea. And then-
Control the
and then-
meeting a little more.
Yeah, that way I think it's kind of directed by us instead of by, these other presentations and,
Yeah.
other
I'm
things.
glad I missed that.
Yeah.
So that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Willie and I were at the last one.
yeah.
It's only, what do we have, like 10-15 minutes or?
Yeah, no,
barely.
yes, I talked to Gloria about that as well, that it's like, I mean, yeah, we need to meet with these people, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the town and county getting together for a
Yeah.
meeting, and especially when
Correct.
you do it before, a town board meeting and.
You're limited on
So
time.
you can't, you know.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
they got-
people run over on their
meeting.
presentations and yeah.
And so it's like, you know, there really isn't any conversation between the town and county, we're getting presentation, then you guys go on to your meeting, and it's like, well.
I kind of ask that we don't do it before their meetings too, because I
No,
kind
I-
of feel like with their agendas, and I don't know if you guys saw their last packet, they had 5 public hearings in one meeting.
Monday, yeah.
It looked, yeah,
No, and
How late did that one go?
I don't know, they started an hour earlier, but yeah,
No, I told her the same thing, it's like,
Yeah.
we just need to have an evening where we.
I'd rather have it where we're focused on our own
Make-
issues instead of what the
Yeah.
things in our agenda and the other packets, you know. Some of these packets could be really long, we don't need to
Yeah.
add this on to another thing, we need to have this one.
Has Tom found out any more about affordable housing grant?
Oh, yes. Apparently, but they did get a letter, and I mean, they don't have a contract or anything yet, but they did get a letter from the, can't remember what, Colorado Health Foundation,
Yeah, I would say Colorado Health Fund, but yeah.
that they did receive the $400 and whatever $1,000 grant.
Wow,
So,
wow. So that enables them to keep their 600,000,
Yeah.
isn't that?
and
And then we don't have to.
we don't have,
put in.
we can hold on to that 100,000,
Right.
like I told Austin, most likely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's always cost overruns and unforeseens that we'll probably end up using that, but at least we have it to use.
And that 100,000 came from the lodging tax, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but we don't have to spend it, so now.
No.
Or, which is,
Yeah.
that's really great,
Now we
that's
can-
really, that's big, that's.
So they got okay for those duplexes.
Yeah,
That's really big
Yeah,
news.
that's big news.
Great, that's
Yeah.
huge. In today's times.
Yeah.
so that's, yeah, no, that's good.
What else? There's a sword meeting today. I was gonna ask Becky and I should have asked her, but I'll have to call her when we're done here because it's right during the time of our visit. So, I'll just ask them to go to that meeting for me, but I do keep in touch with the minutes and the meetings afterwards if I'm not able to attend. And they're not so much going for a full-time, you know, facility, kind of they're focusing on these smaller kind of peer-led group homes. And that's something that when she was kind of hitting on with the efforts that they've had, that addiction treatment usually is better with some of those kind of like peer treatment facilities and peer treatment counseling and things like that. That tends to be a lot more effective in addiction management than it does to have, you know, kind of that traditional rehabilitation facility with, you know, doctors and medical staff. And I think the La Plata they have 2 now, they have a male and a female facility because they found that interacting the 2 doesn't work very well. And the lady who presented on it was pretty funny. She said, and I guess you can, and you could probably tell which one we have more issues with. But they're trying to do more of those homes. I think they've got those 2 up and running, and I think they're planning on like 7 or 8 in the area.
Wow.
So they're trying to get more and
Just because
spread out through the
that it'd
area
be much
too.
more effective then.
Yeah,
And probably less investment too, over there
Yeah.
first.
they're still expensive, man.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because they're not just regular houses that they're building, and they're accounting for the staffing. At least they're accounting for the maintenance and the upkeep of these buildings too, as they're doing them, so they're kind of looking at it like a 10-year plus
Long term.
long-term thing, which is good, but it's it's good, and you know, for someone in San Juan County, I think that some of the grant money Becky's got would, you know, potentially pay for somebody to go to one of those facilities if that happens, so. Still haven't, I think the biggest problem that group is having too is, right, like La Plata has kind of offered to kind of chair and run some of those, but they're not getting a lot of cooperation from the other regional local governments in supporting those efforts or committing. You know, basically La Plata said, you know, like I think the Denier Center idea died because basically La Plata said we can try and leverage some grant funding and some resources to get going in this facility, but upkeep of it will require an IGA from multiple county governments. And I think, you know, the death of San Juan Basin Health really just kind of cemented. That idea was not gonna work, that they didn't have the regional support to manage that if it was gonna cost outside money from not outside money directly from, you know, the general fund or whatever of these different governments, so. That's where that's at, but it's still moving along, so, yeah. Yeah, I think that was about it.
Tomorrow is a GoCo meeting. That should
Oh, yeah.
formally,
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
we hope, formally approve $750,000 grant.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
For the single track.
It looks super positive, so.
I think I think we get to announce it and celebrate after tomorrow.
Beer and hot dogs.
Beer and hot dogs.
You're-
Beer and hot dogs.
And we think we're gonna find another $100,000 to come with that,
Really?
and, a donation, yeah.
Yeah, I think we talked about that with the America's Lands Foundation, which is nonprofit that works with BLM. Kind of like a lot of the Forest Foundation folks do with the Forest Service.
Sure.
It's kind of
No.
BLM.
That would be great.
And they had some really, really great ideas for leveraging even more funding and getting even more funding from Alpine Bank, and he listed off about 5 other different sources that everybody else seemed to know, but I was a little unaware, so I would love to get Clement Lisa's perspective on what we can kind of do to kind of keep pushing, because
Yep.
once we get awarded this funding, we're gonna have another year before construction starts, and the work for the construction is done, so what can we do to keep pushing it to go in the next phase or to build onto it?
I'm pretty tight with Alpine and Durango. I don't know who calls the shots, but I think there's a regional president on there, Mike Burns, that I'm pretty good friends with.
Yeah, we also we're starting to do more banking with the county through them, so
Oh, good.
that I think would be a good.
In Durango?
I think our contact is more in like Ridgeway Uray. But it doesn't, we can go kind of each direction and see who wants to field the requests, you know.
I've felt pretty good about dealing with them over the years. I used to do work for them as well. Good group.
Good. Yeah, but I think that they'll be high on the list to start with, and then there's a few others in the state that we'll want to work with. Yeah. Any other ones I'm forgetting? I was remembering that before I get called. What'd you do?
Just for reiteration, I can't go to the Blanche meeting, it's right at peak train time, so I can't. The whole purpose though is to look at taking all this and maybe putting it there, is that, okay?
Correct.
Are we thinking of buying it, leasing it, using the building there, what are the ideas?
Look at our options,
Yeah.
all
I think this is just a first step to look at the price.
Okay.
But, I mean, if we're gonna purchase it, it's gonna have to be a lease purchase option. We don't have,
Right.
we don't have $1 million.
I'd like to see us paying some other things off before we do that kind of investment, so definitely. So just take some pictures for me or something. I can come up around 2:30 maybe, but I can't do it at 1:30. Too short-handed.
We'll text you either before we're leaving or at 2:30 if we're there.
Even at 2:15 or 2:20, I might be able to run out there. So.
All right. Yeah, we'll let you know.
Yeah, I don't know how much time we're gonna be there.
If it's like the Anglo-Saxon site visit, we'll be there after 2:30.
Who's showing you the site? I mean,
I think the real estate agent.
Melissa.
And I think, sure. What's a realtor that's doing this property?
I don't know.
I'm probably blanking on his name right now.
and
And then, I think Bruce was gonna hope to be there, because they're losing space here.
there's and that, right?
And so, I think we're looking at.
And to think about it, is that the best spot? Are there other spots that could be cheaper too? Or or a better location, I don't know. I mean,
That's why we're going to look at
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no, I understand, but it's,
Yeah.
you gotta start somewhere, so.
Yeah,
You guys own a bunch of spots then too.
Yeah,
we do.
yeah. Some of, and they all have, you know, their own
Yeah.
things, just like
Yeah, but
this site does.
that's actually a really good point, is that,
No,
do you. You know, especially with the taxpayer, if you go buy a chunk of land or do you use the land that you do own, you know, and we do own a whole bunch of new land, so.
And I think, yeah, well, actually, thank you. That raises another issue that I wanted to bring up, and always face it. We had talked about
Yeah.
visiting all this.
That
our
gold
new
property.
land, and I know Dennis was interested in going out and doing that, so I think, again, before the snow starts falling,
Oh, yeah.
we probably need to make some plans on getting out and doing that, and, so then we can
Yeah.
kind of start deciding
It's-
what we may or may not wanna do with that.
It sucks because it's gotta be a day meeting. That's when you're busy. But you
But
can't go look at these things at night.
If we schedule that, like, you know, to go look at all those properties, we have a lot of light, if you schedule it like at 2:30 or 3. That makes it
That'd be
more
better for you.
viable for me
Sure.
instead of right in the middle of
Yeah,
traffic.
there you go.
Yeah.
No problem.
There's a few other field trips we need to plan this summer as well. We have a field trip that we need to take to Pole Creek, and Scott, if we're doing that in the middle of the day, I don't think you'll be required to go do that. I mean, you're well familiar with what that looks like.
I do.
So, but I think I think even some of the people from the Forest Service in the Rio Grande side have never been to that site.
They admitted that.
They admitted it, yeah.
Yeah, no, that should be.
So I think that's one field trip we need to take this summer. And then we've talked for years about doing a, you know, inter-county picnic somewhere up in the Alpine Loop region. And I think that would be a good one to schedule and see if we can do it. And with Hinsdale, and they had sent something to us, and they wanted to do it in like early August, and we had said, how about late August or early September?
Right.
I mean, that's the way
Yeah.
I responded to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some dates in
Can't be peak
September,
season.
even early October.
Yeah, and so
Where do you wanna be
we
up
gotta
there?
talk to, I'll pastor Christie about that and see what they think, and
Gotta give me some dates for that tour ahead of time, the calendar fills up.
yeah.
I mean, we may just do it on meeting date, it's just. Have our meeting in the morning, then reconvene at 2:30.
2:30,
Yeah, that would work.
2:30 works for you?
Starlink, and we can broadcast from
Once
Amazon
straight
Sports.
time, but I'm
So we
relatively.
can have our,
Cool.
we can have our meeting and we can broadcast from, you know, from up at Lake Emma.
Yeah.
I definitely, I'm
Just
glad you
kidding,
guys are
yeah.
going to that we're going to the Blanche Plaster, but I think Dennis really brings up a good point. We've got lots of land, and maybe that would be a good use of that land would be something like this, but that means building a new building too, and there's already a building at that.
Well,
point.
that building wouldn't be.
No,
No,
you
I
can't
mean,
get equipment in there.
In Rusty's mind, that building would be probably serve the
For the
sheriff.
sheriff and stuff like
But
that,
no,
but
he's
that's-
looking at
that's a roof, yeah.
What are they asking for? You wanna talk about it?
Yeah, let's adjourn.
I think they're talking in the neighborhood of $1 million.
I think we'll ask this. We'll ask them up there.
I'm not buying it, just so you know.
Oh. Hey, something to just throw out at the very.
Or can we announce this meeting adjourned, or is this? something
Yeah, go
we need
ahead.
to go?
We can.
Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting